for our communities. So I'm very glad to be back. I don't know where we start last time because I've been.
I think you have to start all over, my darling, because we so much enjoyed that presentation. Please, that's why we are doing
No, I just wanted to know because I know there are other presenters.
No, everybody will have their normal time, so we are repeating the entire thing. Start, yeah.
All right, and I'll try I'll try to go quickly because it's a long presentation. There's a lot to say, and like I said, Dr. Janet, this topic is huge, and each of the themes could be, a lecture on its own. But we try to go as far as fast as possible. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for inviting me, Dr. Janet. Very appreciated. And I'll try to make sure that the lecture is more on the practical side and you can have some discussions. Like 2 days ago, one of the first things that we started with, I think we will try to do it again. Like I said, it's a tradition. So we start with the safety share, if we don't mind. So if any one of us has a safety share for the rest of the group, please just take few seconds to share with us, please.
I call on Mrs. Olani to share herself, to give a safety share. Mrs. Olani, please give your safety share.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are all welcome to this webinar. I am a geologist, and it's very important for me when I'm going for field work to have a first aid box. First aid box must have some of those tablets, bandage, plaster, things that one can easily use for first aid treatment. Thank God that I had the first aid box. One time I went to field with my geological mapping team. We had a problem with one of our geologists, and it was the first aid, it was the dross that we had inside the first aid that we now applied, and to the glory of God, we didn't have any problem. So it's very important when we are going for field work to have our first aid boxes with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you very much for that advice. Now let's dive into our conversation, starting with I think the framework that I mentioned last time, the Avatar movie 2009. I think is for me it's a real representation of what is happening in the mining sector in our part of the world. It reflects really the complexity between economic gains, culture, land, FPIC, everything, all the topics that we're talking about here are represented in that movie. Yes, it's a science fiction movie, but it really represents what we're talking about today. It's not the movie is about capitalism. It's about land from the communities, but like I mentioned, it's not only about owning lands. It's about people's defending their culture, people defending their souvenir, their legacy, the community. That's what it's about. It's not only just sitting on the land, but what does that land represent for our communities? What does it represent? It represents the livelihood, yes. Your economic gains, yes, but it's more than that. It's like you need to keep what your family, the generations has left for you. So how do you keep it that way? But at the same time, there's economic development issues or interests from maybe the countries, so how do you balance that? Making sure that yes, we have economic development, but also we make sure that the communities also benefit from the natural resources that are God-given. So then we move to the concept quickly. about, being on the same page about what do we mean by land use acts. First of all, it's all the acts regulation that really governs and manage land ownership in a country. So identifying who owns the land, how the land is used, and the rights and responsibilities for each of the parties. So especially for Guinea, the Land Use Act was elaborated and voted in 1992. So that was after the neoliberal economic policy that or politics that was taken at the time. So more liberalization of land ownership, which was different from a more state-owned land that we had in the previous regime. So the land code, and so in Guinea we call it land property right, and then you also have other regulations, ministerial arrêté, and the like. But then I think we will come to that later. And one of the issue between the Land Use Act, so Code Foncier Domanial, Land and Property Code, is also how does it really coexist with formal, with customary laws? How do we make sure that there's a marriage, and I call it sometimes a first marriage between the official laws and our communities and customary land ownership systems. In terms of mining acts, in Guinea, mining is regulated by the Mining Code 2011, amended in 2013. So that governs the exploration, extraction, and regulation and mining minerals within the country. Mining activities in Guinea are central to our economy, with bauxite and iron ore, diamond, gold, represents a fair part of our economy. So the mining right has been seen on the international scene as a very innovative mining act within the region or in Africa in general, because it really takes into account all aspects of mining. And I used to mention that mining operations for me is 20% extraction, but 80% is about sustainable development. 80%, because most of our mining area operations are in the rural areas. So that means affecting directly our communities, our livelihood, our culture, etc., etc. So the Mining Code of Guinea has been very, very innovative in that part, taking into account not only the extractive side, but also the environment side, the community side, how to make sure that the revenue management mechanism that has been put in place, etc., etc. So those are the things that we're going to see more after. The third one is indigenous people. Like I mentioned last time, in Guinea, in the context of Guinea, we really talk about communities instead of indigenous people. I think the terms come maybe from Canada and Australia with the indigenous people. But in Guinea, we talk about communities. So what does it mean? It means that we make sure that communities are well informed about what is happening or what will happen with the land for economic development. They need to be part of the process. And we'll see that most of the communities are not part of the decision-making process when it comes to mining. And most of the information will be really at the end of the process, when mining rights has been granted already by the Ministry of Mine, and all the other ministries have given the seal of approval, and the communities now get into the scene and are now faced with making sure that they are informed most of the time, they really don't have a choice because it's a presidential decree. So it's the state that needs the land for economic development. So how do we make sure that communities are informed at the goal from the beginning throughout the process? So those are the recommendations, and especially from the international conventions, the UN, the IFC principles, etc., etc. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. So now that we have, I think we're all set with the terms. Now I'm gonna show you all not all, because there are a lot of stakeholders and acts. So we're just gonna review very quickly most of the acts and stakeholders that are involved in land use and mining, and that will show the amount of intervention within that process now on, which was different from.
Sorry, Honorable Camara, can you do your screen, because you are the one showing. Your screen is not showing. You are showing half screen. It's cutting. Can you enlarge it from your end and show a full screen? Yeah. I think it's better.
Okay.
So that we can follow your presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in terms of legal framework, so like I said, I mentioned the Code Foncier Domanial, Land and Property Code, so which regulate ownership and focus both on urban and rural areas. But what we will focus here is especially on rural areas. And so it defines land, right, ownership structure, and how land are transferred. So now the challenge is, and continues, is the challenge between the official acts and then what is happening on the ground on the local level, and how those two are coexisting. And in Guinea, those customary laws are taken into account within the process, because for many years there has been that fight that is only official acts that are recognized. But because of how it is on the ground practically, and communities raising their voices, those local customary cultural laws are taken into account within the process. The second act, which is called Cadre de politique nationale de réinstallation des populations de 2021, it's a framework for national relocation and compensation framework. It's a tool that will help all the miners, communities to really understand the process of expropriation, localization, and compensation of our communities. This is a process that was started a few years back, when really we had a lot of mining operation now in Guinea, and then more voices that needed to take into account the environment and community side. So this card has been initiated, I would say from major companies like the Rio Tinto ones, who have to comply with international standard. But because the national laws were not as high and strong in terms of communities, relocation, and compensation, so the state has learned a lot from those international major companies. And that's what led to the implementation of this framework, which is really, really well done. This is a really, really great tool. And I will try to harmonize how compensation, how the relocation are done, how compensation are done as well. But we'll go into details further on. The customary law, as I was mentioning, which is really what is governing the land use at the villages level, at the village level, district level, and communities level. This is the law of lineage. This is people living on the same land for generations and generations. That's what I mentioned. So when you need to relocate them, you're taking them away from the economic gain, but especially from the souvenir, the legacy, the heritage. And the customary law is very involved in that process. So the first engagement that you do when you go onto land, Those are the first stakeholders that you come into contact with. The stakeholders on many levels involved in that process. Of course, the ministry in charge of planning urbanization, which is the primary government body responsible for managing land allocation and ensuring compliance with national laws. But you also have other ministries. Like I said, it's not only about one ministry, but it's a multi-stakeholder platform. So with the Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization, the Ministry of Agriculture also, and which also in the agricultural code also talk about the relocation and compensation of agricultural lands. You got the tribunals as well, especially at the subnational level, who also are part of those processes. Local authorities, of course, and commission foncière, those land commissions that are present in all the prefectures in Guinea, and who are really responsible to be able to engage and make sure that land use is well done at the local level. And of course, the committees from the communities themselves, elders and with communities involved, representative from the youth and women. And we will see that most of the committees, you will have a representative from women, one person, but most of the time they will side with what the elders and what the men would say. So they're not very vocal. And even if they are, they will go in the same direction as the elders or the men. In terms of mining rights, like I mentioned, the mining code 2011 and amended in 2013, which is really a comprehensive, innovative code, really taking into account all the aspects of mining operation, really. And as far as, like I said, how do we manage mining revenues at local level? So the putting in place the convention of local development, how many percentage would go into the local development funds, how would that be managed, which agency would be managing that. So so with the mining code, you also have other instruments as well, other codes like the land, environment, water, territorial, local territorial codes. So all those multi-layer codes that make sure that we regulate that activities. And of course, I think on the regional side is also the African Mining Vision. This framework that has been decided, adopted by mining ministers of the African Union, that really makes sure that mining would benefit our nations and our communities. So again, many stakeholders involved in that. Ministry of Mine taking the leadership, of course, but then other ministries also have been put into the picture. And at first, before, when we talk about mining in Guinea, it was only the Ministry of Mines business because nobody else. But now it's more larger than that. It's more holistic. That because we've seen that most of the conflicts that we see around mining operations are conflicts that are related to other aspects of extraction and the technical side. Most of the conflicts or most of the issues or risks are really outside of the mining operation. It's sustainability, it's the environment, it's communities. So that's why many interministerial commission has been put in place at the ministerial level, but then also at the technical level. And one of the key innovation also that was done is to create a guichet unique that is here, the single window that plays a key role in approving, coordinating between the different ministries of all the permits and approval for a mining operations. Because as you know, and we mentioned that there are a lot of rules and regulations. So how do we make sure that we facilitate the process for miners or for investors that will come? So before when you had to have a permit for road construction, for example, you need to go through several ministries, environment, public works, and etc. Then it was decided, and there was a very good, I think, policy from the government side, and which also was helped from Rio Tinto at the time, and I was privileged to be part of those team, and the African Development Bank to be able to put the guichet unique. So now you have a single window with all the ministries represented to help with the process of approval and permitting. The stakeholders, so local authorities, defense forces, the communities also are part of the stakeholders. The consent right, like I said, is really the international tool that is used really to make sure that we follow that standard, that communities are really informed, they are consulted through the SCIA, for example. But like what we see is at the beginning of the process, it's just ticking the box, really. So it's not something consistent, it's just ticking the box. It's at the end when they are now faced with using the land that now we just make sure through forums that communities are involved. But it should not be like that. But I also want to make sure, and I think I mentioned last time, that you need to make sure that, you know, there are two mining companies. You have the major ones and you have the junior ones. Major ones like the BHP, the Rio Tinto, and the other like have really high standards that they try to comply with. They have improved because they were not like that a few years back. They are improving because they are learning from the past. So complying to the highest standard with, you know, IFC principles, with the UNDRIP, with all the international conventions in place. And then you have the juniors that really don't have really stake at the international level. So they really do the minimum. And that's where I think the issue lies as well, making sure that they understand what the laws they need to comply with, and what are and how can it be impactful at the local level. So those are the framework that make sure that communities are involved. Like again, Ministry of Mine, Environment, all the same players that need to make sure that yes, communities concerned are taken into account. The mining companies, as I mentioned, local community and civil society. I think civil societies really play a key role in that, in terms of information of communities, in terms of just getting the voices of the communities heard. And they play a key role on that, especially the international NGOs, because they really put light sometime on the challenges in the mining operation for the communities. So really vocal in that part. So international civil society like EITI, Publish What You Pay, also a part of, you know, that process of informing our communities. So now, just to understand really the context of mining, I mentioned that mining is central to our economy in Guinea, central. And it has been the most export, it has been really the one that has been driving our export policy. And so now it represents about 84% of our total exports and 20 to 30% of our GDP. So that's see how important it is to our economy. And with many minerals, bauxite, so the second largest exporter of bauxite in the world. And, you know, a substantial reserve of iron ore with the Simondo project that Dr. Janet mentioned. So it's been on the map since, so forever. We always heard about Simondo project. And so now it's something that really is driving the government to be able to see how we can really start the exploitation of that mine. You know, gold, diamond, and etc. So to see how important Guinea is on the map in terms of mining. And it started during colonization with the French exploiting the first mine starting in 1920s, and first exploration in 1948. And then after independence, then it was state-owned, and PPPs also especially for bauxite. And one of the oldest mining companies we have here is CBG, which was created in 1963. And in that time, land ownership was really state control at the time. So no regulation, or very little regulation, were in place at the time. And after the second regime came in, so that's where we had the land use codes and more regulations, and then more foreign investment also coming into play. Like for the Simondo project, the Rio Tinto came in 1996 and started the exploration at that time, and BHP, Pillington, and other also on the ground. And that's where you saw more impact in the communities, because of course it is, it goes in hands. More industrialization you have, so more community disturbance that you'll have. So at beginning we saw that the mining was more the miners-led initiatives, but then the government came in with and the international community also came in to make sure that hey, we need to look into what is happening in mining operations, because there are more and more community concern in that. And one of the concerns, of course, environmental sustainability. So how do we make sure that there are less negative impact of mining operations on the environment? So this is not a Guinea challenge; it is a worldwide challenge. But we've seen that it has really increased since the 1990s. So polluting the water, toxic byproducts that can lead to contamination of soil and water resources if not properly managed. So those are the challenges that we've seen on the ground, and I think we're all familiar with that. So I'm not gonna dwell really because it's an international issue that too, and we all know how impactful it is for our communities. Social equity and community relation, of course. Like we could say, like I said, communities. But at national level, we also talk about the mining curse for countries that have natural resources, but I also call it community curse, because unfortunately, despite all the armada of regulations, we still don't understand how come those communities are not developed. We have laws, we have acts, we have stakeholders like as multi, but how come still today, we still have impoverished communities? So, and land is a key in that, because like I said, it's touching people's life. So it's not only about compensation or money compensation, it's all about all other things that we need to take into account that we'll see later. Focusing on women especially, because I think those when you talk about communities impoverishment, yes, but especially women, because they are the ones that are directly impacted by the land, because they use land for their sustainability. They use land to feed their families. They use land to be able to make sure that they plan the lives of their children. And then those lands are taken away, and they are not part of the decision-making process. They just follow. Yes, it's we will, as women in mining activists, that's why we try to fight for making sure that their voices and their concerns are taken into account from the on-go, and not as just ticking the box or said, yes, we have consulted women through general forums, but it doesn't work like that, because you will not really take the concern into account. Now, just wanted to dwell in the historical evolution of the land use. And I think I've mentioned that, land use was state-owned until 1984, with a new regime that was more liberal, and then you have more regulation on around mine management. And so I've mentioned that because I'm conscious of time. So I'm just going to go really quickly on that part because I think I've already touched upon that. So now, one of the three questions that we had from the beginning: land allocation, revenue sharing, and benefits. Benefit for the community. So how land is allocated for industrial mining in Guinea? So it's the same process, I believe, that from the Ministry of Mine taking the lead at the beginning, miners applying to make sure that they have permits for exploration, and then subsequent authorization as well. So making sure that the Ministry of Mine with other ministries are involved to be able to go through the whole process of land identification. And like I said, the first stakeholders are at the local communities through the local authorities to make able to identify what type of land. It's the state land, privately owned, etc., customary ownership, etc., etc. So that's really is led by the miners and also the ministry. So once all those processes are done, then we have the declaration of public utility. And I think one of the panelists will really go into that. So it's when the state has expropriated the communities after all those processes that is critical before getting to that. And that's where the land is at the disposal of the state, and then the state has given it to a promoter, so mining company, et cetera, to use for their activities. And that's really when the process gets in to be really able to use the land. And then the application for titles at the ministry level, and through the National Commission for Title that will technically review, and then the ministry will get the permit, it will be signed, and the decree will be published in the National Gazette. And then for all other approval, you can have the guichet unique. And all those framework are based on a mining code, as I mentioned. And the critical steps also is the SEIA, well, I call it SEIA, Social Environment Impact Assessment, which is throughout, once, from baseline studies to throughout, you need to make sure that you develop the SEIA and then you update it as you go along. And then the compensation resettlement process also that kicks in, monitoring compliance throughout. So by the ministries and by the international NGOs and national NGOs, and also by international financial institutions such as the IFC that really look into how mining operations really take into account the community issues. So now the challenges, of course, it cannot go smoothly, otherwise we will not be here today. So what are the challenges of land allocation? One of the challenges, like I said, it was overlapping responsibilities, really, because so many stakeholders involved in the process, and but at the state level, so that challenge has been partly, because that cannot be fully now, it's not partly resolved through the creation of Guichet Unique and those interministerial committees, just to be able to fill the gap into for the coordination. But it's still we need maybe better visibility on that. The key issue is identification of customary landlord owners. That's a very key issue. And I remember that once when we had to use some land around the corridor for the Sibondi project. Then for one land, you had at least 3 or 4 owners for the same land because of a lineage. Someone would say, no, we are the first, that's our lands. And then we are the one who are giving the land to such and such. And such also has maybe borrowed the land for farming to such and such. So maybe you had 3, 4, 5 landowners. So who really own the land? That's what I said. This is key. And even for the rest of the process of localization and compensation, this is for me is the key, making sure that really it identifies who is really the owner of the land. And that's where the communities, committees are really important. So it has to be transparent, and it has to be we need to take our time for that process, because most of the miners, that's really, like I said, tick the box in here. They will rely on the maybe the land commission, because it's the state to be in front. But then internal conflicts can come in, internal conflict within communities also come in. So it's messy. So that's why you need to be really rigorous on how to make sure that you identify who really are the landowners to be able to continue the rest of the process. Inadequate compensation, yes. It fails most of the time because of for a lot of issues, actually. Sometimes the compensation do not really meet the standard of miners, or is very, the compensation are not done properly, because part will be corruption, part will be not well-informed communities that would take anything. So maybe they will say, okay, we will take this plant for $1, and normally should be $3, $4, but because the communities don't really know the value of monetary value, not the cultural, but the monetary value of those things that should be compensated. So sometimes they get less than they should have in the process. And we've seen that more on with the junior operation that the major mining operators. Limited community consultation also. Like I said, the SCIA should be throughout and should be done really rigorously. But what is happening is sometimes just tick the box to be able to comply with national laws and have the validation approval from the Ministry of Environment through the National Agency of Evaluation and of Environmental Evaluation. So that's really also a key failure from the for one of the key challenges for land allocation as well. Okay, now on the good side, because I think in anything there are also positive impacts of the Land Use Acts and in mining operations, because of more economic industrial development, especially mining. There are more households that are getting formal titles, because some I forgot to mention that one of the challenges also, landowners most do not have formal land titles at the local level. So we know from lineage that this is our land. It's so big and we don't even know how large it is, but there's no formal title. And so at that level, so how do you compensate or relocate people that don't have official titles? So that's one key also challenge that needs to be taken into account. But like I said, with model operation, there are more land owners that are getting formal title, because they know if my land is within the corridor or within mining, projected mining operation, then we need to have title. So more and more are getting more formalized. And now with the cadre de politique nationale référentielle, we've got more formal compensation and resettlement framework, which is really good. Lesson learned from what has not worked in the past, and now we have a framework that harmonizes really how do we engage, how do we relocate, how do we compensate, how do we pay. And of course, mining operations, yes, they have created even limited jobs, but they have created, and they are trying to develop regions through operation. But it's a long way, it's still a long way in that, because what's the complex is when you go to a mining region, and you see the villages around those mining areas, you said, you just ask yourself, but what is not working? And one of the my surprise when I went once to a mining town, I heard so much about that city, and because of this big mining, and when I went there, I was like, this is it, this is it. So how come? And we tend to believe that the further you are from mining operation, the better off economically you are. The closer you are to mining operation, the poorer you are. So it's that's the complexity that we need to tackle at this point. Second question that we ask ourselves. So yes, now that the land allocation is done, at the end of the day, who's benefiting from those mining revenues? Who are benefiting? So we see that at the state level, government level, of course. So all of those ecosystems are taken into account in the mining code, so which gives 15% stake minimum to the state. So within the mining code, so the state has 15% state in all the mining operation, and through a state mining company called Sogipami. Royalties, 0.4% in the local development funds, 15% of surface tax, that's we call tax superficiaire. So most of the revenue generated by mining flow to the central government, which uses this fund to finance national development projects and local initiatives. And then you also have a national agency for funding of local communities. So local communities, through the mining code, so there was a fund set up for to be able to show that communities get some part of the mining revenues. So there's a local development fund, and so those funds are coming from, of course, central government through the National Agency for Funding Collectivity, which has started about, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. But there have been a mix of success and failures, because we would see that money has not always be going where it should be. And again, women has been the most negatively impacted by that. They have not really benefited from those funds yet, even though 20% of the funds should go to women initiatives and 20% also to youth initiative, but it has not had the impact that has been waiting for. The surface right fees will go directly to the local communities as well, tax superficiaire. So it's calculated based on the area of land they use, the company use. So the fees compensate the state for land use, but have been criticized also for not directly benefiting the communities affected by mining, although those funds are directly paid at the local level. So I mentioned, I think, the agencies that are part of the process. So of course, at the national level, the Ministry of Finance, other initiatives, tax offices. So all the economic tools involved in that, and all those mechanisms are in the mining code. That's what I said is a very innovative and the holistic mining code. The National Agency for Local Development and Funding also part of the mechanism to make sure that they put those funds at the disposal of local authorities, so they can fund in local initiatives. But again, the impact has been very minimum, because at the local level, one of the key challenges that we have identified is lack of expertise in management of funding. And so it doesn't matter if we provide millions and millions to those local authorities now, but you need to help them technically throughout the management of funds on that. Otherwise, the impacts will be very minimal. Local authorities, they develop the annual investment plans and programs and the budget, and then they develop their plan. So the development fund is really to be able to finance those annual investment plans or the programs. But for that, you need to elaborate projects. But if you don't have the expertise to elaborate projects, so money will be in the account, but you cannot use it. And most of the time, then money is diverted to be used for something else. And so those are the mechanisms that also need to be tightened. Governance will be tightened. Capacity building will be tightened also at the local level. And of course, Guinea is member of AITI, so making sure there's transparency management of mining revenues, publish what you paid and etc. And also local, national, local NGOs are really also taking a big part in that process of transparency and informing communities. And I also want to mention that normally in the mining code, those contracts should be published on the Ministry of Mine sites, so we can see the revenues, the contracts online, etc. It has been done sometimes, and I think we need also to be able to further and make it stronger to make sure that we got all the mining contracts and all the revenues published transparently for everybody to see. And I mentioned, although we have all those framework, all those mechanisms in place, but are really women benefiting? Are they benefiting from those revenue sharing? Are they? No, no. And there should be more, because we know that in our national economies, women play a very great part, officially and then informal economies as well. So how come then they are not the one getting benefit from the industrial development, and especially mining? Because they are the ones that are more impacted. One of the key challenges that we see is lack of sufficient representation in the local governance and decision-making process. Yes, women need to be more powerful. They need to be represented where decisions are made. They need to be represented. But because of cultural challenges, yes, it's difficult to find women around the table to take decision. Like I said, they always will side with what the elders and the men would say. So we need to make sure that we take them apart, and then we make sure that we empower them, not empower against their culture, because that word also need to be taken consciously. Not empower like I said, no, they need to stand against the men. No, but make sure that they know their right. But then how do you make sure that they are more involved in decision making, more numbers and quality, so then they really can represent the voices of women. Education and employment disparity. Yes, because if you are not really educated, it's really difficult to be able to be around the decision-making process, to grasp the opportunities that lie for you. So education also needs to, that women education, girls education should be also part of those programs that empower women. Like I said, cultural norms. Okay, women are expected to farm, cater for the children, etc., etc. So when there are meetings, sometimes they're on the field, so they're not present when the consultation are done. Now the challenges, and I think I've mentioned that also, transparency issues. Of course, the process needs to be more transparent. Lack of expertise at the local communities, again, mentioned that. Delayed payment also, that because there have been a lot of layers for payment. So going to the central government, coming down to local government also. And the compensation payments, when they take time, then they'll create also conflict between community leaders and the communities at the local level, because communities might think that funds have arrived, but then the authorities have taken the funds somewhere else, and etc. So it creates a lot of conflict and confusion in that regards. Now, now how do you make sure that we fill the gap? How do we make sure that we improve the mechanism already in place. I mentioned again, strengthening the transparency mechanism. Yes, civil society organizations have a big role in this in terms of information, investigation, or auditing and monitoring. Very, very, very key, critical to improve transparency. Secondly, involving more women in decision-making process. At the political level, at the community leadership level, having more women economically empowered, because we have seen examples where when women are educated, they have economic financial independence, then they are heard, even from the community leaders. A typical example, when women, she was part of a polygamous household, and her husband did not give her, so there were 3 wives. So the husband, of course, he's the landowner. And because she was not the one that was preferred, so he gave lands to the 2 other wives and nothing to herself. So, and then I think she was coming from a very big family as well. And so her father had, gave her some land of her side of the lineage. And so she started working on that land. And but because she was also educated, she had little education, and then from that land that was given to her from her father, because she was working farming with her children and etc., so she was getting more financial independence. And then when the compensation started, she was able to raise her voice, because she felt like the land has been given her to her by her father. She said she has worked, she was educated, she knew a bit about her rights. Then she was heard even within that communities. But of course, what also was critical, that she wasn't just fighting against her husband or or the communities, but she knew how to make sure that her rights were voiced over and taken into account. So education is key. Financial independence of women also is key. Building institutional capacity and local governance also very, very, very critical for me. And as an MP, I saw that, you have all the beautiful programs for communities, but because at the local level, community level, you lack expertise, you lack educated people to be able to develop programs, to be able to manage funds. So that's where sometimes also the revenues are really not managed well at the communities level. They might have good wills, but the way it's managed is a bit critical. So I think I will go through that because I've mentioned a lot about that as well, compensation information. So conscious of time, so we just go quickly on that part, if you don't mind. Then we would have a floor for more discussions. The PARC process. So the PARC is the Plan d'Action de Réinstallation Compensation. So that's based on the national referential. So that I mentioned before, the reference, the national referential, the relocation and compensation, although is taken into account into the mining code, into the land code, in agricultural codes and etc. But we know how it was not really well done. And so if you don't mind, we maybe go through quickly, and I really want the discussion because it's a long presentation, but I'm gonna go through the basic and then we'll have more conversation. So the steps that is taken for the revitalization, and I said this should be done at the very early of the engagement, because the PARC process or the PARC plan is part of the SCIA. It's a component of the SCIA. So, but because it's just at the beginning, just tick off the box. So when it's not properly done, that's where we see a lot of issues in the long run. So it's really important that those first engagement are key success factors to be able to have really good relocation and compensation process. So once you have done the studies, the engagement is also critical. Identification, key to success factors. Then the compensation valuation and calculation. So all of those processes are in the national referential document, which is really, really good, because now we have a tool, step by step, with even some examples of how the forms should be, how the studies should be conducted. It's really, and I'm glad to point out and how you can get a copy or send it to the Janet. She will share with the audience at some point. And the livelihood restoration and resettlement, and community services, etc., validation process, and etc., implementation and monitoring. So those are really the steps that is taken into the parks. Again, the challenges and the recommendation. Again, making sure the consultation process must be done more inclusively, especially for women. Do not take women through big forums. Don't. Take them in small, very small groups. Then they really can be more open to you, and you know the concerns. Don't assume because we have representative for women into the national local forums that that's what they want. They need to go into smaller groups, and then they are more confident to be able to share. So it's very important to take all those steps. Better enforcement of the referentiel, of course, like I said, is a tool to make sure that you comply with all the regulations, that national and international regulations that are taken into that document. Monitoring and evaluation as we go along and along and along. So quickly again, I just wanted to show good success and failures in consultation compensation. Simandu against Bofa area. I think one of the success factors for the Simandu model is, for me, it's a best practice, because they have learned a lot from the 20 years engagement in Guinea before really making sure that the engagement, the compensation was done right. So early engagement and comprehensive consultation, very, very key in that. So Rio Tinto and the Chalnaco and the IFC and the government of Guinea then have a joint venture to develop the project. Started from Rio Tinto, and then it was more open to a consortium called SIMFA. And now there are more stakeholders also in the consortium. So it's getting bigger and bigger, more mutualized, and I think it would have more impact. And for the Simondo project, normally exploitation will start next year, 2025. But so what led to that, and I think is a best practice for communities, relocation and compensation, early engagement and comprehensive consultation, as I say. Once the company or the project received the PIN, so the National Public Interest Decree, in 2012, and I was also glad to be part of that process. So once we had that, we make sure that consultation was done on the go throughout. Early engagement was done, stakeholders engagement started, and then starting to identify, really, like I said, and the identification process is really key. So have a detailed park and validation of the park at all levels. At the time, the local commissions were not really effective. So we had to make sure that we put those local land commission in place and engage with them. So it was multi-stakeholder, multi-layer engagement from the on-go throughout. So a lot of conversation, coming back, understanding, making sure that we can avoid as much disturbance as possible. We can just make sure that we do not impact biodiversity as much as possible. We cannot impact cemeteries, burial space as much as possible. And there have been a lot of cases where we had to divert the tunnel for the rail, because the project is mine, rail, and port. So we have to divert the rail to be able to avoid someone's cemetery, the community cemetery, or to avoid like a very rare plant that was in an area. So you see how all those things will make sure that we do not disturb a community's livelihood and the environment. So once that park was done, it was a long process. It wasn't not just a year project. It was a long process until we make sure that we got it right. And then started the implementation and compensation process with first, I think one of the key also success factor was that the compensation was not done until you had financial literacy to the communities. Because how do you make sure that someone who has never maybe seen maybe seen $1,000 and then you give them $100,000? Of course, it's going to be misused because they're not used to it. And we saw examples that, once a community or a household, most of the time is the man, that would then just, marry other, more women, buy bags, and then 2 or 3 just to show off that they have money, start building houses. And then when money is done, now they don't have training, they don't have the livelihoods, they don't have the lands anymore. What do you do? And that's where we see a lot of conflict, because people now are desperate. They don't know what to do. They have given their lands and they have been compensated, but now because they do not have opportunities, what do? So then those conflicts start. Resettlement and livelihood restoration programs, of course, once communities are resettled in areas with access to water, healthcare, and education, because it's not only land to land, it's now how do you create better environment for the communities to do not feel that they have lost their land. But again and again, that's something that is lacking in all the literatures and laws. How do you compensate souvenirs? How do you compensate cultural loss? How do you track that? Because for the land, you say that one land is equal $10,000 and one plant is equal. But how do you make sure that culture? How do you tariff that? What's the tariff for culture, for history, for sometimes the sacred forest? How do you monetize that? So those are also the things that we need to take into account further. And then we saw that once all those things also were taken into account, for example, like I said, on the cultural side, we work a lot with people from the cultural world. We work with elders. We even wrote a book on Bela, on one of the region, to make sure that we have the history written for future generation. So people know in 20 years' time how their time was. So that's also one of the good practice that I will recommend to other miners, at least to write it down, the culture. So even if they leave, they can remember in the future, and the future generation will see how the culture was in the past. So then that will lead to limited grievances and positive impact. Of course, when I say positive, it's not as we should or we want, but at least we saw that the way the park was done for the Simondo project then has been the standard that is used now for other mining projects. On the contrary, BOFA is where I was an MP, and I saw a lot of challenges around how communities were relocated and compensated, because lack of consultation on the time in time, lack of community engagement, lack of proper compensations. Then that's why we see more and more community unrest in that region till today. And the environment impact is just you cannot even describe, because failure to implement a good park, again, because it was not properly identified, it was not properly relocated, and was not properly compensated. So that will lead, of course, to a lot of grievances at the community level. So we saw that community voices were not really heard. At some point, we had a community that was relocated, no, not compensated, because there was no relocation. The lands were taken from them after the decree to the expropriation decree. And I can tell you that between consultation and compensation, 72 hours. Compensation, 72 hours. People came, companies consultant came, talked to the community as a village, and then call the elder to say that this is the decree from the president, and then the land will be taken. So 72 hours, they came with the money in the bags and gave it to the community leaders in front of the community. Okay? So 72 hours. And it was done in cash, no through bank account, no financial literacy program, nothing. It was quickly done. And today, and at the time I was involved, and then I tried to make sure that those communities were heard. But who do you talk to? Minister of Mine, Minister of Environment, Minister of Local, that's who do you talk to? But because it's a presidential decree, people are like, okay, what do we do? So the way we resolve that is what make sure that then they were compensated with subcontracting with the company, so they can really restore a little bit of their livelihood. But until today, we see that there are a lot of grievances with that community. So key lessons, like I mentioned, early consultation, proper development and implementation of the park, financial literacy and oversight, very key. Making sure that land management is also well done, so that we can avoid all those challenges. Now, and that's the last part is how do you make sure that there are benefits from all of that? Consultation, again, I'll come back because for me, that's really key to the process. Government-led ecosystem. I think is before you can lie any of the economic development policies, we need to have the ecosystem to be able to manage land. So how to make sure that all the region have the regional planning and schema is very critical. How do you make sure that then we have land planning subdivision, and then digitalization? I think we need to leverage on technology, making sure that land are registered, we have mapping, and then people get the title, so it's all digitalized. I think technology will be really key. And then national programs for people to campaign so they can have more land title. So it's gonna be easier then for promoters, mining promoters, then to relocate and compensate, because they don't need to go all through the basic. And they know that once that's done, people have their title, is easier. So we don't make mistake of who we are compensating as well. And enhancing transparency, I mentioned that as well. Improving the compensation mechanism and livelihood restoration. And one of the key here, because we know we have the local content law, and here, like I said, it's not only moving, one community to another place, but it's also how, when you move them somewhere else, how do you make sure that that area is better than where they're coming from? So that means not only building houses, is building communities. So that means schools, healthcare access, electricity, etc. So whole ecosystem where they can feel that their life are getting better. And then good opportunities for employment and also for business opportunities. Because I really think that the people need to create local economies and local businessmen. So how to make sure that you create that ecosystem, not only restore money-wise or build houses, is to create the whole ecosystem around the communities. And governance and coordination as well, that I mentioned from the national level. So now, also, I think the partnership at the international level also is key to learn best practices and how it can work. And I think one of the examples for me is Botswana, which is in terms of governance best practice. We can learn from that experience. So I'm gonna stop in there and be open to question. It was very to take in, and like I said, it's a big topic, very big and interesting topic. But and we need to move forward. And I think this is a really good time for women in mining to get into those conversation, because I think that's where the difference would be, and the key success factors that we will learn and implement in our communities. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me, and I'm open to questions.
Yeah, let me stop your slide. Oh, sorry. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Are you hearing me? Okay, that's nice
We're
if you're hearing me.
you.
So
We're
once
hearing
again,
you.
Camara, I want to really, really thank you for this wonderful presentation. This is a whole lot of pie in our plate. I know hands are up, but I don't know, maybe we should do the effective comparison, because why I brought you back, Camara, is because I know this is critical. And I'm happy that our Director of Legal Department is here, that we will need to take this document to, because they said something new must be better than the old. So if Nigeria is trying to amend their act, it is good we take in different dimensions. And we intentionally invited Republic of Guinea, because Guinea started trending again last year with a $20 billion investment from Rio Tinto, which is a multi-company investment that is about, I know, so it's about 4 or 5 companies came together and investing 20 billion in an economy I know is so huge. So I thought it would be exciting, to pick yours, and then look at Australia, that is known as a mining destination, to compare, so that we in Nigeria, with our legal director here, or because already this presentation was done during the conference, you understand, can take in and assimilate so much. I don't want to preempt anything, but I'll just give a teaser, because when we talk about transparency most times in Africa, I know in resource governance, you have this language where you say, is it a zombie transparency or troika transparency? You understand? Because at times people can submit all whole of jargons, you understand, and tell you, but have they followed those things they submitted in that is actual implementation of it? So in the course of discussion, we will come to that. So can we take the next presenter before we start comparison and we keep our questions, or how do we want to do it? Professor Odukoya, will you unmute, for us to just unmute? Can you unmute Professor Odukoya?
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we do, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Our able presidents, thank you for everything you have been doing. I want to start by congratulating you for the successful last conference. I'm actually joining from China. I'm in China presently, so it's in the afternoon now. So I'm going to be here for the next 3 weeks.
Wow.
So I have privilege to join. I'm so happy. So please, because I may not have the benefit of staying till the end of the whole talk. Maybe I should just quickly give my.
No,
But to
that's
me,
okay.
this is a
I called
very,
you
very
because you are the first person who joined this morning.
yeah,
I'm here. It's midnight. Yeah, you're on this, past midnight. So thank God for technology.
yeah. We can all join everywhere from every part of the world.
So
Yeah.
quickly state your position. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And in fact, I can't see any other speaker that can treat this topic the way Honorable Camara has done it. I mean, it's enormous. Thank you so much. I mean, you took care of all the topic. It's amazing what you have done with the topic. So what I just want to say is, even from your talk, we can see that it's like women is facing a lot of problems everywhere, and we are nowhere. And if we look at it, I think we are the one responsible for this problem. I'm going to come to that shortly. If we look at it now, if we are talking empowerment, still in many localities in Africa, women don't have access to inheritance. Some of them cannot even own land. Lands in many communities belongs to men. If you are not a man, if you're a woman, what you need to do is just marry and go away with your husband. You cannot inherit land from your father. Talking about, even if you have, by adventure, you have the land, you still need permission, either from your husband or from the community leaders of what you want to do with the land. And I'm so happy from the point you said that all this framework, all these laws, we have them all well written down, fantastically solutions on paper. But in reality, we are not seeing anything. Why is that? And it's so hurtful to me personally, because at the end of the day, women are the one facing a lot of these problems. Is on mute. Hello, I think the host is, I don't know.
Yeah, okay, just continue.
Okay, thank you.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
I think, okay, so from the solution, I just want to talk about the solution. I think we are the one that will help ourselves. We are the one that are raising these men and women right from the cradlehood. We raise boys and girls. How do we raise them? I think it's high time we begin to raise our boys and girls to be equal. We don't have to put to our boys, when we are raising them, when as young as they are, that boys are superior to girls. We should learn to do that. I mean, push your girls as much as they can. The narrative should start from home, so that the boys will not see girls as inferior to them, or girls will not see boys as superior. So that when we get to that management level, when we need to take position, women will not be relegated. If we do that IQ right from the childhood to our boys, by the time they become men, they will not see girls or women as inferior. So when we need to take decisions, they will see them as equal, as partners at that level, and decision will be taken together to take care of everybody. That is number one. I think we should challenge ourselves. Mothers, when you are raising your children, start so that the next generation will not have to face the problem we are facing now with this discrimination. It should start from that. And also, women, we should learn to support ourselves. We are talking about decision makers, the people at the ends of affairs. When we need to vote for those leadership positions, how much do we support ourselves? So that we begin to support ourselves, we begin to support women that are able and have capacity to sit on that board, to sit in that decision-making position, so that we have more women too represented in that hierarchy stages. But now, I don't know, women will find it difficult to support ourselves. I think we should begin to do that. If you see women that can do well, that have what it takes, let's support ourselves. Let's vote for women to be head of the board, directors, ministers, people that make decisions, so that this narrative will begin to change in favor of women. So I just want to stop there. I think that is very, very important. Because we can start saying, changing framework, it will not help us. We have to help ourselves. And like I said, that is very important. Let's support ourselves and let's raise our boys and girls equally, equal mentality, so that when they become big enough to make decisions, they will see themselves as equal. And maybe for our generation that are coming, they will not be able to face all these problems we are facing now. Thank you so much. Thank you for the good job. I will stop there.
Thank you, Professor Odukoya. Please, I want to beg of you, Zeinab, Camara, please stay behind. You understand? Because the discussion will really be very interesting. Let's take our papers and pen and jot down our notes. You understand? Even Professor Odukoya, as much as you can, stay behind because you're a major voice and stakeholder as leaders in the industry. Dr. Sidikat, you are a stakeholder. You understand? We need to change. And the only person that can change this thing is we. The launch is by the people, for the people, and for the development of the generations coming behind. So I indulge all of us to wait and to hear out, what is happening. Because you find out that Africa is a resource-based nation. Yet we talk of resource cost because the resource is not benefiting us. Every book you look at the RGI, that is Resource Governance Index for Nigeria. That's why everything we have is 53% on the average. And what happened? Our realization value, is very poor. What is realization value? The realization value simply means when you look at the political, environmental, and institutional arrangement, you find the serious gaps. So we come up with what I call opaque or zombie laws. You understand? The zombie transparency. We write beautiful things on paper, but we don't implement it, or we make our laws so complicated that interpretation becomes difficult in the courtroom. So let us just take notes, and at the end of the day, we will all discuss. Permit me now to call our own, to bring in the Nigerian experience of what they intend to do. That's Mrs. Amaka Odili, the legal director of Ministry of Solid Minerals, to come address the same topic. We intentionally did that for easy, comparing apple to apple, oranges for oranges. You understand? So, Mrs. Odili Amaka, you are welcome, to take the stage, and make your presentation. I will do the sharing of your presentation for you, you understand, to make it fast.
Thank you so much, Engineer Janet. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your resilience, not giving up. That even as yesterday, I was saying, will she be able to call me? It's Saturday, I need to rest. Oh, from work. It's too early. You woke me up. You're such a resilient person, and I didn't have a choice again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Doing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So
I've started sharing. Have you? I hope you. Is the screen? Are you seeing the screen?
no, I'm not seeing yet. I've not seen anything.
Sorry. Let me go back. I thought I share. Can you see the screen now?
No, I cannot see it. Okay, it's trying to open now, but it has not yet opened.
It should.
It's trying to open, but it has not opened. I'm just like trying to. Maybe I will.
No, don't worry. I will share it from here.
It's
other screen
it's
sharing.
open now. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This is a very hot topic, and during our stakeholders meeting with our consultant Mite and on the amendment of the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, it was very hot. And again, women in mining brought me up in the last conference. It was a very hot topic, but just let's look about it and reason on how best we come with a legal framework that will benefit the indigenous community and the Nigeria as a country. Nexus between consent and sovereignty in the Nigerian law. I started by defining sovereignty. Can I have the next slide? Sovereignty is a complete power to govern a country. And so we have sovereign countries that have self-governing system. And also sovereignty also alludes to power. And where does the power in the society lie? And that's, I brought up the UK system where the sovereignty lies with the parliament, the hear of sovereign parliaments. It does not lie with what you call the monarch. It's with the parliaments. Then under the presidential system of government in Nigeria and then in US, the sovereign power lies with the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary, under the doctrine of separation of power. And this power is taken from the Constitution. And so you hear of the supremacy of the Constitution. Section 1 of our Constitution defines the supremacy of the Constitution and provides that government must be in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. Any other law inconsistent with this Constitution is null and void to the extent of that inconsistency. So the Constitution defines the powers of the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. The executive power rests on the president and his council. That's the ministers, the president, and council. The legislative power rests in the National Assembly of the federal government, and then the state assembly. While the executive power of the federal government rests in the president and council, the executive power of the state government rests on the state. Then the judiciary, the power rests in the courts, with the Chief Justice of the Federation as the head of the court. Section 44 of the 1999 Constitution provides that entire property in and control of all minerals, mineral oils, natural gas in, under, upon any land in Nigeria, or under, or upon the territorial waters, the exclusive economic zone of Nigeria shall vest in government of the Federation. So government owns the mineral resources, both solid and liquid, talking about petroleum and solid minerals here. And so this same section is repeated in Section 1 of Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, giving the federal government ownership of all solid minerals in any land. Can I have the next slide?
Yes, it's off.
And then we have the Land Use Act. The Land Use Act vests all land in the states and subjects the power of the state government to grant rights of occupancy. You see, as a reasoning of the essence of the Land Use Act, because the Land Use Act came up to abolish communal and individual ownership of land. Let's just face it the way it is, whether it is right or wrong. And so that all land is vested by the law in the state government to give you what you call lease rights of occupancy. So what we get best in Nigeria is a right of occupancy, because the Land Use Act abolished communal ownership, individual ownership. So you have 99 years lease, what you call the right of occupancy. It could be customary, could be statutory. So while the Land Use Act vests the ownership of the land on the state government, Section 12 provides that the power of the governor to issue license on the land does not extend to land subject to statutory right of occupancy already, or of a land under a mining lease, mining rights, or exclusive prospective license granted under the Minerals and Mining Act. So the power of the governor, of the state governor, to hold the land under rights of occupancy is subject to that exclusive right of the federal government to own any land that has solid minerals. So the state government does not have the right to issue right of occupancy or license any land where there is solid minerals. It still belongs to federal government because of the minerals that is discovered in that land. So until there is total removal of the solid minerals there, the state government's hand is exclusively removed from that land. The power of the state governor to revoke right of occupancy for any overriding public interest, because the Land Use Act provides the state governor can revoke the right of occupancy for any overriding public interest, like if they want to build road, hospitals, nobody could come and say, I have right of occupancy. The state governor will revoke it. But it does not affect the land the federal government has acquired for mining purposes or oil pipeline for any purpose connected therewith. And so these are called preferential rights of federal government to any land that has mineral resources on it. So the state governor does not have any right over such land under the Land Use Act. Overriding public interest is also known as preferential right or priority land purpose. When there is priority over any land, for instance, government wants to build road, government wants to build school, there is mineral resources on the land, it takes precedence over any other right of occupancy, whether by state or by federal government. Confirmed by Section 1.3 of Nigerian Mineral and Mining Act, this provision, exploitation of mineral resources and transfer of ownership must be with the requisite approval of federal government. It's federal government that licenses mineral exploration in this country. Then now we come to the hot topic, consent. Like I've taken time to lay the foundation of ownership of land, ownership of solid minerals, consent. Section 100 of Nigerian Mineral and Mining Act provides that notice of application of any mineral title over any land shall be given to owner or occupier of the land, and his consent obtained before license is granted. Failure to obtain consent over any land excludes that portion of land from the mineral title. And so if our ministry licenses land, it grants license for a mining lease license to any company, and then that company fails, it is proved that you failed to obtain consent on any portion of that land, it excludes that land from the license. So the consent is a sine qua non. It's a condition precedent for licensing. It's a very powerful instrument in the hand of the owner or occupier of the land. And so the question is, where then lies the power of the federal government to supervise ownership of any land that has solid minerals as a sovereign power? Where then lies that power if the owner or the occupier could say no using the instrument of consent? Consent is therefore prerequisite to grant of mineral title. Other prerequisites to mining within the law, the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, are community development agreement and compensation. Next slide. Section 71C and Section 161 of Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act requires that a community development agreement must be contracted and approved before commencement of operation. CDA, that's what it's called, is for providing social and economic benefits to the community that will be impacted by the mining operation. And so CDA comes after license, but consent is before license. CDA is when the company is licensed, but before you begin operation mining, there must be an agreement with the community that will be impacted by the mining operation. And so the community could now enjoy social and economic benefits like scholarship, roads, hospitals, the employment of some youth, some people into the company to ameliorate the hardship of mining in that community. Section 1D and Section 113 of the same law provides for compensation of owner or occupier of land for any crop, economic tree, or building on that land, which would definitely be destroyed by reason of mining on that land. So you assess that compensation, is assessed by the ministry, the company pays and takes over. I want to remind us that the mining lease is just for some years. After the mining operation, the company is expected to reclaim the land and return it back to the owner or the occupier. And so here we find that consent is different from compensation and CDA. Consent comes before license, while compensation and CDA comes after licensing, but before operation. And so we find a significant amount of time are currently expended to resolve controversies generated by consent under our Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act. Consent has generated a lot of controversy. Because I'm in the system, I can tell you very well, I know what I'm saying. First is the confusion of status of consent vis-a-vis other prerequisites to mining. like compensation and CDA. It's all mixed up. They mix it up. Consent is, they don't know the difference between consent and compensation. Consent and community development agreement. This person will say, you've not given, the community will say, we've not given consent. When they get, what they get is agreement for social benefits. And then the owner of the land will say, yes, he's the one that also gives consent. He has already collected compensation. For issuing the consent letter, he wants another compensation, another money. Because ideally, under the law, consent should be free. You don't need to pay the owner for consent. But all these things are bastardized. They are now, abused. And so that the company pays for consent, traditional rulers take over consent, the state government wants to take over consent. While the owner of the land gets compensated, he still wants to be paid for the consent letter he issues. Another controversy, state governments aggressively creeping into the mining regulation through their apparent ownership of land under the Land Use Act, often aggravated by statutory consent requirements. So while the law, the Land Use Act has given government all the priority land use for mining purposes to federal government, the state governments have now crept back under the consent to begin to exercise power over that land. When the law and constitution has given federal government rights over any land that has mineral resources, state governments they've come under the guise of consent to exercise power over, to even withhold federal government access to mineral resources. So that licensed companies companies could not be licensed again because the owners of the land, the occupiers of the land, and even the state government refused to release consent. You know, without consent, there will be no license. Next slide. Efforts of state governments to derogate from exclusive rights of federal government to manage and regulate mineral resources is aggravated by requirements of consent of the owner or occupier of the land. In some states, the government have instructed traditional rulers not to give consent without approval of state government. This is tantamount to indirect regulation of mining operations. In some states, traditional rulers issue consent from their bedroom without the knowledge of the owner or occupier. And so we have cases in court where somebody appears to say, I did not give consent. But the mining cadastral office that issues license, they have a consent letter from the emir, from the local chief, while the actual occupier that should give the consent does not know. In some cases, consent are given. No, the occupier will say, no, I'm not giving again because apparently what we see, Chinese company has appeared with much more money and the owner wants to take back his consent that he has given. Say, don't issue that license again. No, I'm taking back the consent because he has seen more money. Can I go another slide, please? Perceived and obvious conflict between communities as to ownership of land and the right to issue consent for use of land for mining purposes. So there is a problem, conflict between communities and individuals. Who owns the land? And then the right to issue consent, where does it come from? The traditional ruler say, I'm the one that will be giving. But the law says it is the owner or occupier. And so we battle with this problem, meetings in the office over who gives consent. People close their eyes to the letters of the law because of traditional ownership of land. It does not really, it's not the same in every community. Because I now realize that in some communities, the ownership belongs to the traditional ruler. Every other person is like a tenant in that land. But we are looking at who is actually occupying the land. That's the person that should issue consent. And go, so consent is to the highest bidder. Now, whoever brings the highest money receives the consent. Within the Constitution and our Act, power to license and regulate for mining is exclusively reserved for federal government. Ownership of mineral resources rests on the federal government too. Mining is also within the exclusive legislative list, implying that State House of Assembly cannot legislate on mining and mineral resources. And so our problem, the challenge is that consent is giving power to state government to begin to regulate mining operation. And so we queried constitutionality of consent. Both the Land Use Act and our Act defines mining as priority land use. Federal government has the sovereign power over mineral resources and the land reserved for mining purposes. Section 100 of the Nigerian Minerals of Mining Act is in conflict with our constitution regarding ownership of minerals by the sovereign and the power of the sovereign to access the minerals on the land through approved and licensed agents. Section 100 of the Nigerian Minerals Act that provides for consent is seen as illegal, is seen as inconsistent with the Constitution, and therefore, to that extent, is null and void. Section 1 of the Constitution states supremacy of the Constitution, and law contrary to the Constitution is null and void to extent of the inconsistency. The next slide. And so our recommendation is to amend the primary statutes on mining, our Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, and expunge consent. That's my first recommendation, but although I didn't alter this because I've already submitted it, I just started thinking, how we go around this. Because I liken it to the adage we have here. I don't know how many Igbos that are online. We have this adage that it is easy to give monkey a cup of wine, palm wine. You give him, but you cannot collect it back from him. So that's it. Under the old law, the 1999 Act, there was nothing like consent in that law. And so people didn't mind. Just like if federal government wants to build school, they compensate you, they go ahead and build the school, hospital. Nobody asks for consent. You just see a mark that the road is passing through the land, you apply for your compensation and you receive. People, that was how it operated. But now, people have enjoyed the benefits of consent. And so can we really expunge it in our mineral law? It might be a bit difficult. So I suggest also that we sustain CDA for transfer of benefits to communities impacted by mining. We sustain compensation of the land owners and occupiers for economic trees and buildings affected. We enlighten people. And then I suggested possible return to the old dispensation of the 1999 Act, where we did not require consent of landowner or occupier. But I think I'm changing a bit, and I want us to really brainstorm on what is the best position as we want to amend the law, and consent is giving us a lot of problem. Just have it at the back of your mind. I said, it is easy to give monkey a cup of palm wine, but you might not be able to collect that cup from him. Thank you very much. Yeah. And so all lands in which mineral laws have been found in commercial quantities shall from commencement of the decree, that is 1999 Act, be acquired by government of the Federation in accordance with provision of the Land Use Act. And the minister may from time to time, with approval of the Federal Executive Council, designate such lands as security lands. That's the old law. Ownership was automatic under that decree and consent was absent in the law. I believe we could refine this position and get it right in this dispensation. We might not go totally to that, but we have to really look at this issue of consent, how it will work best for us. Again, I repeat, can we really collect this cup back from the monkey? Thank you for listening.
Let me stop sharing. Thank you, my wonderful sister. This is a beautiful presentation. And you know what? You are one of the best civil servants I've seen. You presented something and you saw the reaction in the conference and you took it back. You understand? Meditated over it and you are throwing it open, you understand, for discussion. And that is why I said, again, take your paper and take notes. Let us not be myopic. Let us be broad-minded. Let us have a spread. Let us hear different perception. You understand? We take Dr. Toyosi Craig. Dr. Toyosi Craig is a member of the Forbes Global Council. It's for you to be recognized internationally outside the shores of your country as a Black man. You know, that tells you of significant contribution. We brought in experts, to you today. And then we will do a desk review after we have done that submission, because what we are trying to do here today is our little space. We will gather this information. Our legal director will equally ponder over it, just like she got some perspectives in the conference. That's the beauty of discussion. And then it could help the Nigerian legal system. It could help our Mining Act, you understand, rather than just going strictly with what the officials of government, because officials of government are there today, tomorrow they will leave the place. And some of the crises we have in the country today could have been mitigated or stopped or not even happened at all if people are comfortable, you understand, with what is happening. So, Camara, you have listened to Nigerian position. It would be nice to hear your perspective when it comes to the issue of consent, but not now. Think about it. Come up with your reflections, you understand, so that when we are talking, you key speakers, Jumoke Fajemirokun, if you are still online, we will really want to hear from you. Patrick, you are a minor, we want to hear from you. And I know that our former director of ASM, you understand, humble man, silently joined. That's Mr. Ojeka. It would be nice to all brainstorm. We might not even have the opportunity of being in the final meeting where the ministry is doing their thing because of the logistics of movement in Nigeria now. But it's easier to discuss here. And then everything will be harvested and taken and done appropriately. We are the people of Nigeria. We are government. We are the pen. We are the biro. We are the paper. Once again, permit me to thank you, Madam Odili. You said I woke you up. Don't worry. It's one of those things. It's one of those sacrifices. Get your cup of coffee and put it beside you. Mine is beside me. You understand? Take your cup of coffee and put it beside you. So permit me to welcome Ms. Dr. Toyosi Craig. Is he online now? I just hope he's online.
Yes, I am.
We are lucky. Thank you, Doctor. We are so grateful. We are eager to, because people just said, no, we want to see his present. I hope Mrs. Dan Priestfield is online. Those of you that called me, Folake Akinleye, Ambassador. Ambassador, I hope you're all online. They are eager. You understand? They had a part of the paper and they said, no, we just must have the
online.
Okay. Okay. So, Dr. Toyosi, you see, we are, we want people to know you at home, that you are our own, Omo Dudua. You understand? So, over to you for your presentation, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Ma, for having me. I do not take this for granted. Apologies, I was just speaking at another conference, so I might not take too much time, but I'll try to do justice to this. And this is a great work you've been doing. I've been around listening since, and I think we need this. I wish we've started this so many years ago, but it's never too late. So today I'll be speaking on what I think a lot of justice has been done to many things I want to speak about. So I'll just bring out a little perspective about this land, the Land Use Act, the Indigenous people of Australia, and few things from Australian perspective.
Please, can you mute if you are not speaking so that we enjoy the serenity? At least today we don't have hackers. We give God all the glory.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and waterways where I'm speaking from. Those are the Wanjuk people of the Noongar Nation. And I also like to acknowledge those of Abeokuta, where I was born. Those are the Abeokuta people of Egba Nation. Because this is women in mining, I put the pictures of women of the past of those people. So I would like to pay my respect to the elders of the past, present, and emerging. I think this is one of the greatest things that I've seen is being done in the developed world, understanding that apart from all the academic or the industrial knowledge that we have, the connection to the land itself is very important, because I'm sure everybody has a story to tell. When we talk about the Indigenous people of Australia, for example, the picture on the right-hand side, the lower one is what you will see. But generally, actually, the one on the upper right is more like it. They are just doing a festival. You know, when I was at an interview with someone yesterday and they were saying he's an Indian. He said every time he claps, he was interviewing somebody and the person was like, is that your culture? And he was like, no, I was just clapping. So, and then we started telling people that sometimes you don't judge, you just need to be curious. And in the mining world, that's what I tell people. Whatever you want to do, especially when it has to do with consent or land or special territory where you've never been before, I encourage us to always be curious, ask the questions, and don't just judge. Because you see people wearing white or this, it's actually their way of life. I'm sure women have a lot of story to tell, especially outside the country. If you are a woman of African descent, people always ask about your braid or ask some funny questions. Instead of them to ask, people just judge. So these people have been in Australia for 60,000 years. And imagine being in this country for 60,000 years. And there's only 3.2% of the population that are actually these people. So many similarities with Africans because they have 167 languages. And you will see from what I shared before, I said the Nunga, the Wanju people of the Nunga nation, just like I'll be referring to where I come from. They call themselves the Abeokuta people of the Egba nation. So that Egba was a nation that was amalgamated into Nigeria, right? Same thing here. So they have a lot of languages, such that when you are working in, when you have to work on the particular resources that cut across different boundaries, these are the basic things you need to understand. That people look alike or that they say they come from the same area doesn't mean they are the same people. So those are the things you first need to understand when you have to navigate things like this. We always do this. Welcome to country. Welcome to country here is just a protocol that makes us like, it's more like whenever you are, even if you're a Christian, you know, they say the Lord, the land of the Lord and the fullness thereof, the water and the sea, right? And the same thing has to do with this place. Wherever we are entering a new country, this, I believe, is one of the reasons why the resources here, industry has been very successful. It doesn't stop you from serving your God or anything, but just respecting the culture of the people of the land. This welcome to country is a big deal. And definitely it's always done by someone who has been given the legal rights by the traditional owner or traditional leader of that country. We call it country. Like you say, if you go to another state in Nigeria, for example, from one street to one street could be Iyin Ekiti. That's a place. And then you go to another place, is Igboti Ekiti. You go to another place. So those people are different people. And resources might cut across this land. So we always need to understand, like, let them give you, like, welcome to countries where it's more like, they always say, we give you permission and safe passage so that you can just pass through the country. And because of this, I'm a Christian by faith. Every time I fly into any country, like I was still speaking to our honorable 2 days ago when she called me. I was flying to a different mine site. And every time I'm flying to a mine site, I always, in my mind, like, spiritually take charge of this land, do this, do that. And I found it to have worked, right? It's not like I'm binding or closing or anything, but I just recognize that there's also a perspective to this. I won't go into these details, but I just want you to know that the country that they call it here, country itself, it's called like tribal or clan. The resources, they believe the resources are tied to people. For me, I realized like where I come from, and that's why I say I'll make it home. I'll take it home so that it can be relative. It's called Abeokuta in Nigeria. Abeokuta means under the rock. Literally, I grew up knowing there's a lot of quarries, granite and quarries there, of course. By now being proud, or the whole industry is controlled by people from a particular country in Asia. And now all those rocks are getting blasted. There's no even anyone or any professor you can turn to that can tell you like, okay, the reason why these people are called Abeokuta is this or this, and these rocks are just blasted indiscriminately, and there's always repercussion to these things. It's been proven. I have a PhD in engineering, but doesn't mean that I don't understand the reality of life. Now I'll go to the next slide, which is the intersection of this nexus where I'm talking today. I see we've done a lot of justice to the Land Use Act. I'll just speak more of the indigenous land rights here. And the mining right has already been, a lot of justice has been done, thanks to the previous speaker. I'll speak about the consent here. And if there's time, I can just tell what we can learn from it. And why this topic today? On May 24, 2020 in Australia, Rio Tinto, one of the top 3, if not the top 2 countries, mining companies in the world, blasted a particular rock. course, in search of iron ore and the rest. Very rich. But they realized that that rock has been there for 46,000 years. And you'll be shocked what was found in those rocks. You can check this out on YouTube. It's not like film trick. They found hair, human hair that has been preserved for over 4,000 years. They found tools like swords that they have used the animal's bones to make, which has been there for like 4,000 years. For perspective, if you use Christ's death, like AD, after death, that's like twice the year before, 2,000 years before the generation of the Romans. And then the CEO had to resign. Of course, there was a lot of global shock because of this. So this is why I'm coming from that angle after actually understanding the people and culture of where you're going. We've already done justice to the law and the rules around getting the mining rights and getting it done. I'm coming from the angle of actually understanding, like sometimes when the land itself favors you, you move fast when you actually want to get your resources. So the next thing I'll speak about is just to talk about, here we call something crown land, which is literally almost like what we say in Nigeria. Crown land before used to be royal land, like when they colonized the Aboriginal people or something like that, they took over the land. So the whole land belonged to the government, but now it's called like public land. Generally like 93% of where I am. But there's a way they do it here in which they are able to also mix it and people are able to return to their land. The difference is in Nigeria, it was not or Nigeria or some African countries, let me not say Nigeria alone, the lands were not really colonized. Some were taken, obviously, but it was the government itself that did the Land Use Act, in Nigeria. So it's a beast of a different perspective. These people were moved away from their land and then they have to have a way to get it back. Because some of the lands where they actually live are where the mineral resources are. And that's why most of my talk today will only be on land rights and native title. And what that native title means is like, it gives you rights and privilege to be able to practice what your forefathers used to practice. It doesn't have to be religious activity. It could be fishing. It could be anything that you feel like your forefathers used to do, and we need to do it back. So when you have that native title, such that if anybody then wants to do any exploration there, they come to you or you discuss with them, then your royalties goes to you. Interestingly, you'll be shocked. As of today, there are 40% of people, 40% of Australian land already have native title, but only 16% of those lands belong to the Aboriginals. You now wonder, so if they are the owners of the land, who are the other 26, 24% that have collected the native title? That's one of the challenges, like the previous speaker said, because there is a bit of, it's a bit not straightforward how the law works, and somebody can actually wake up and actually claim someone's land if you know how to navigate the rules. So, yeah, so miners' right, I won't speak more about it. The only thing here is we have frolicking and prospecting. There are two types of prospecting. Frolicking is just for people who are just doing this for fun. People from the other part of the world, some people have so much money, they just want to explore for fun. And you can take that. This license also allows you to do that. But if you have to be prospecting for mining, then you can only do up to 20 kilograms of sample and something like that. So you just have to follow this lay down rules, which I'm sure a lot of justice has been done. And the beauty of it also is like, you cannot just enter other people's land, because 40% of all Australia has also been given as pastoral lands. So it's very big. For perspective, Western Australia, which is just one out of the 8 states of Australia, is as big as West Africa. So that shows the land mass. And to cut that part of the story is the mining royalties. So mining royalties are generally paid by the government, by the people who are mining to the owners of the land. Like I said, government generally own the land, but once you have the native title right over a land and the land rights, which I'll discuss later, then you are part of the owners of that place. So it's always a group of people that claims it, so not really like individuals. So if you have come together and say, this is our land, our forefathers used to work here, and you have proved it, even though you are not there, you just need to prove that you are still connected to that land. Let's say you used to dance every 7th of the month, and you can prove to them that every 7th of the month we dance, but we used to dance in this place, but you people have sent us away. You go through the process, you get the title, so anything that's going to be done there, there's royalties paid. And the beauty of this royalty is they split it such that depending on the profit of the mining company, they're only doing ore and selling it. You tax them. Let me use the word tax. They pay royalty based on that, if it's in concentrate or final form. And the beauty is it's divided into 3. So whatever you want to pay, they divide it into 3. One goes to the owners of the land. Let me put it like that. More like the indigenous owners of the land. One goes into the state revenue, right? And the other goes into the minister's coffers. Like, it's also still for the owners of the land, but it's more like for their indigenous health because they've been marginalized for so long, right? So if you bring that back home to Africa, you say every royalty that is paid per square meter or per ton of resources or whatever it is, the metrics that we use, we divide it into 3. Maybe one goes to the local government, the other goes to the federal government, and the other one goes to the people of that land through the association that they formed. Remember, I'm speaking from the perspective of a country with limited corruption. So that's also something to look into. So if you are thinking of doing something like this, at home, you also need to look from the angle of home. So everything we adopt, we have to actually localize it. And I just put this for perspective that there are 2 ways in which that royalties can be paid. You do all this before you even start exploration. And this would have been done after the consent has been set. Put it here that some people go for specific rate, which is flat rate of 73 cents per ton. That's a lot of money. Imagine if you are, because it's very, the land is blessed. Imagine if you are exploring 100 million tons. So that's 73 cents per ton as a particular good impact that you can do. Also, some people use the bulk material tax, in which they just put a value based on the market value or the value of whatever the size of whatever you are exploring. Yeah, to round it up towards the end, I want to speak about native title and land rights. Now, in their own right, yes, they are trying to help the masses, but at the end of the day, they put so much legislation that makes it very difficult for these people to be able to access their land. So native title is what I told you about. Those are the things that people can use to claim like we want to practice our way of life in this place. And what that does is, I'll give you a real life example of a mine that we're just trying to open. And we have to negotiate with the native title holders, like sit down with them and talk with them. I'll show the process. But they tell us like you can only mine up to this 50 meters. From here to here is our sacred land. And through this turning and turning, you don't have to go through all these places. But the best ore is actually sitting down. You know how God works. The best ore is actually sitting down on those places that they call sacred. So we had to sit these people down without question, without force, explain to them, show them. And by the time we actually reason together, I'll tell you the strategy I invented is, if you want to deal with people, what we do as mining company was very successful people is you would have done everything from the office, get these big consultants, do all these things nice and big English, and then just go there wearing suit and tie and telling them, yeah, this is what we have, this is what we'll be giving you, we'll build school, we'll build hospital, this and this. Half of the money, if not 80%, goes to the king of the land and maybe the owner of the land, and then that's it. And that's, if people are really, really connected to their land, that makes them edgy. If people are just not after money, it makes them edgy, it makes the conversation strained, it just makes it emotional. So I came up with an idea, like if you are dealing with landowners or title owners, you start with them from beginning. I was able to bring this to here because I'm from Nigeria. Like I said, where I come from, I realized a lot of limestone, a lot of this. I only knew about a lot of things that we have in my state when I left. I didn't know we are even blessed more than so many countries, right? And I think that if we make this so much money where I work on one ore, how much money would we have been making? So I came up with the idea that These people just come to us and tell us what to do. My surname is Craig, for example. Craig is not an African name. That's a story for another day. So I have a lot of history behind me that makes me comfortable to discuss some things. I'm like, don't tell people, it's not that they are stupid. Go to them when your project is starting, explain to them and carry them along. If they are carried along, people feel connected. People feel as owners if they feel connected. Then they can tell you the right thing to do. And through this process, that's challenge of the new man, I said, we're able to navigate it from like 1 kilometer, we were able to push back up to like 150 meters. And they told us, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do. It may not be in line with my faith, but the people that are free to do it, I allow them to do it. And that thing got signed. It could have taken 7 to 10 years to actually navigate that. But just by carrying them along from beginning, this is what we want to do. It's not that we told them, we have planned this, we'll do this, we'll give you this. No, we're able to know exactly what they want. So that's native title. Land right itself is what gives people the certificates like C of O, that have been dispossessed of my land and I want to take it back, right? So that's the difference. The native title only allows you to practice whatever you want to do or what you are doing in a particular place. And of course, you have the right to negotiate, whereas land rights gives you the opportunity to go back and own the land. I'll just quickly say it is like to do that native title, for example, there are 3 ways. There's always claimant applications, which means like the indigenous people themselves, it's like the owners of the land make this application for either waterways or land that is unique to them. I know a lot of things that we discuss in Africa is always dealing mostly with the land. There's also a lot of resources in the water, so we always add that to it. What makes this complex is because there's also something called non-claimant application. So these ones are made by people or group who does not even have a claim to the title, but they are just seeking determination of the court. You know, it's more like a rich person asking who owns this land. And that's why you saw that percentage I showed earlier, that 40% of the land has native title, but only 16% belongs to the owners. And this makes the process very, very, like, I don't know the word to use. It's frustrating because even the owners, you may get to their land and realize that somebody has actually claimed the native title of your land. And of course, the compensation, which are made by the indigenous people themselves, for maybe they've lost their area or if they want to claim back from a non-claimant. But because that process is very difficult, we have this alternative, which can also be adopted at home. We call it Indigenous Land Use Act Agreement, which is just a method in resolving like lengthy or expensive court proceeding. It's actually a voluntary agreement, particularly between like native title groups and other stakeholders. Like the way I said, what I did with these people, there was really no native title, but we could sign an ILUA, which was just like, we both all agree, this is how we can do, this is what you can do, and this is what you like. And another method is the Future Act, which they told us, like I said, you can do this, but you can't trespass beyond this, you can't trespass this. So instead of going through all those litigation and back and forth, there's an alternative. And this is one of the things I believe we can always also adopt back at home. Like, is there any alternative to the standard sledgehammer procedure that has been set down for a long time? Because things have improved over the years, so we don't have to be stuck in the past. And look at this. This is a point for discussion. Because we said the initial idea was like we could, people can claim the land rights in Australia, but the land rights you can claim has to be land that is not lawfully occupied or used, land that is not needed for public purpose, land that is not residential area. It's almost, you can only claim back dead lands, if you get what I mean. So this is why, even though things are working in some part of the work, even here, it's not perfect. Because if I look at this, I'll be like, okay, I can't claim residential land. I can't claim any land that is useful for the essential purpose of public. I can't claim any land that is lawfully used, and most of the or that is occupied, and most of the nation's already divided in leases, and so it's debatable whether the rule was actually done to help people or just to marginalize them. So I've given a perspective on the Land Use Act here. I didn't speak much about the Land Use Act here because it's the same with what has just been discussed. I spoke about the indigenous right and native title, which is what gives you permit to go and do your work or do your way of life where you used to be. And anyone that wants to come to that land has to negotiate with you. I've spoken about the land right, which is more like a CFO that gives you back your land. I didn't speak much about the mining right because I see that's been done justice to in the last talk. I just spoke about frolicking and prospecting the different. The final aspect I'll speak about is the consent. This consent is we have something that is called free, prior, informed consent, which means that it's a principle that we use that to ensure that indigenous people are fully aware and they agree to whatever we're doing. So on the last note, it requires that consent be given freely without coercion. Though there must be clear understanding, you must carry them along, and this is to protect them. And the rest, I think I don't have to speak much about the challenges, it's the same everywhere. And yeah, I'll share the slides to make it available. But in conclusion, what I just want to speak about on this is, I spoke about introduction to the land and respecting the culture and the way of life of people. That on itself brings a bit of reconciliation between the people and the nation and the resources, right? Because you are going to places you've not been, you need the people and the land itself to welcome you. It's complex because you see, I said native title, there's a lot of money involved, you get paid, then you don't know whether people are motivated by money or they are just motivated by the fact that the land is theirs, right? I also spoke about the beauty of here is, even though the land belongs to the government, you can actually always claim back your land. And it's still the same thing here that the resources under the ground is controlled by the federal government. So we are here still doing an ongoing work about the policies. One of the things that we have just crossed the breakthrough is here, every license you get at the federal government level, you get it at the state government level, which makes it a bit very difficult. Last week, we've just been able to overcome the greenhouse gas emissions permits in the state level. So that's been removed in the state I come from. So that's one of the things we can also look at, centralizing everything. And instead of having double permits, we can just do a single one. It's an emotional topic. And I feel I hope I've done a bit of justice. Apologies, I was speaking so fast. It's because I have a bit of an engagement and I want to give some answers. I have some time for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Toyosi. We are extremely very grateful, and it's a privilege to have you. For purposes of asking questions, let me put up your profile. I don't know, Dr. Toyosi Craig is a Nigerian-born accomplished energy professional and author, specializing in energy within the mining sector. With a global reputation for innovation, he holds numerous accolades, including awards for his groundbreaking work in energy. His passion for energy access and human empowerment has led to the development of influential systems and policy instruments, benefiting both public and private institutions across multiple nations. Dr. Craig holds a PhD in engineering from Stellenbosch University, along with diplomas and certificates from esteemed institutions like Harvard University, the Technical University of Munich, and the Wharton Business School. He's a certified energy manager and actively contributes to various international journals as a reviewer. He received a national honor in South Africa in 2016 and was named among the 2022 Australian Emerging Leaders in Governance. In the same year, he was invited to become a member of the prestigious Forbes Business Council. He currently works as a specialist in energy transition in the Australian mining sector and has recently been appointed as the president of the African Professionals in Western Australia. So once again, we appreciate you, Dr. Toyosi. We welcome you and we say thank you. Now, because of time, let's start and we can now ask questions and throw it open. You understand? I know that Dr. Sidikat Lami raised her hands for a while. Will you want to ask? Can you unmute now? Unmute yourself, and only whoever has whoever is speaking should unmute, please, so that we can have orderliness. Dr. Sidikat, unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Yeah, well, it's a question. It's I have a question and just to add something. May I say good morning, everybody?
Good morning.
In fact,
I hope your coffee is beside you.
in fact, I just finished 1 cup. I'm on to the next. The most important thing in this presentation is that this is exactly what we need to come up on board. Is one of the most emerging challenges in the mineral sector today in Nigeria. And that we have been able to go Australia, Guinea, and then back to Nigeria, which is to say, you know, those 2 places we have brought in place. I've been experiencing this mining destination for long, and we are just newcomers. But all the same, we should learn from people's experience rather than learning from our own experience, because it makes it faster and less costly for us to maintain. The question that the Honorable Camara asked, why is it that wherever there is mineral resources, the place remain poorer? Why those who are far away are richer? It's no other thing than transparency in terms of what? Consent issuance. Consent issuance. If you see my comment, I did mention that consent is all over any processes that is involved in responsible mining, either as a major stakeholder or junior miners, whichever one. And that is to say, all we are going to say today will start from consent. And then when we are talking of consent, we shouldn't forget about culture. That is what is making us to have this problem in those areas.
Okay, ma. Yeah.
So what I want to say is that in the Nigerian factor, please, let's eliminate the Australian part, which we know is affecting us, and the Guinean part, which we know is affecting us. The grassroots content is important in anything we do for sustainable development. Let's collaborate in anything we do. They say it's multi-sectoral. So it means that the Ministry of Mines alone cannot do it alone. Let's go around. And then from there, whatever the ministry is doing will now be well spread and accepted by international community. We should know that whatever we're doing, regulation should not be just stagnant. It should be reviewed from time to time to suit the emerging challenges. And that is what I am saying now, that let's inculcate whatever we have learned today, put it together to strengthen our own weak point in the sector. Thank you.
Thank you, ma. Dr. Toyosi, because I know you want to run, but we won't allow you to run almost immediately. This is service. We appreciate you, number one. This is service to homeland. I just want to summarize something, and then we will want your position before you go.
I'm here, ma.
Honorable Camara, you understand, is a congresswoman from Conakry, that's Republic of Guinea in West Africa. Rio Tinto has just moved to Conakry to invest $20 billion, you understand, as the lead investor. We know it's a consortium. A consortium about even Chinese are included in that consortium because I read that paper. I know that the Simandou Mountain, you understand, where they have their abundance of minerals, have always been the main attraction for most of all these majors for a while. Now coming back home to Nigeria, she said something which is very vital, The first thing is that they have just one window. They created one window now where all permitting are done. Just one window. We want to look at that vis-a-vis Nigerian situation. One window for processing of any documents to do with land matters. Whether you are into road construction, because I will tell you that in road construction in Nigeria, government is looking elsewhere, whereas they are mining. Because you are in Australia, I'm a doctor, Professor Odukoya is online, she's currently in China. Some of us are, also some people are in different parts of the world. When they are mining, you see them blasting. At times they linger intentionally in that place when they are mining to extort. So the thing is that now, if we have a common window, does it make it easier? That is one question. Number two, Madam Odili, the legal director from the ministry, talked about maybe removal of consent. And will that not be contradictory to international best practices that encourages free prior FPIC? Will that not be contrary? Then will you not be taking the land out of the hands of the people? It will be good to have this understanding. And then finally, because the park process of Guinea looks very interesting to me. You understand? What can we equate to the park process in Guinea in our own current situation in Nigeria? Our legal director will answer that. So what I'm simply asking is that if you are called in today as a consultant or as the son of the soil, a diasporan, who is to contribute, you understand, to the mining sector, because that's your own turf in Nigeria, outside the country, what will you recommend? Haven't had the legal director talk passionately about the problem of consent CDA in Nigeria. What will you recommend?
All right, ma, thank you very much. I think like a lot of people have said in the chat, it's a very sensitive topic. But for me, I think one-stop shop may work, but I doubt if it will work in Nigeria now, because there's not a lot of groundwork that has been done, right? One-stop shop, except if we're going to make that one-stop shop having a representative from all the places that we have mapped out. Except also if one-stop shop will be for each resources separately. Because when you say one size fits all, it also creates another kind of problem in which we know how things are nice, who knows who. Before I really became much into mining, I was in energy. And I know there was a particular government that came into Nigeria and did like, we needed the energy sector to work. They did a framework. And then immediately the new government came, that thing got disbanded. And I was managing two businesses that were $50 million each. Till today, those businesses did not fly. People end up in debt, right? So that's why I'm saying, if we're going to do one-stop shop, they do have to either be resources by resources or geopolitical zone by geopolitical zone. That's one. Two, on it is, what's the second question? Second question is about consent. We can't take out consent. I know it's difficult, it's hard, and that's why we need consultants to come together and use a case study to find the best method to go about it. We know ourselves. Once consent is, there's a video online. I'm sure you would have seen of the celestial pastor in Elisha that the Chinese government, not government, Chinese people are actually mining on their church land, on his personal land. 2 days after, because he shouted so much on social media, they said, I'm not sure, the minister has sent some delegations there and that they will resolve it. That may be the last we hear of that case, because they may pay the guy some money and people not knowing the value of the resources in their backyard and the later impact on that environment, they just say yes, right? So even though consent is like a hurdle, but it's still a check. So all we need to do is how to centralize consent. Is like I said, in Australia, for example, we have broken it down to be communal. Every community that has resources has already formed a group. And because that group is more motivated by their passion and their custom for their land, it's not really money motivated, which is a bit of a challenge back home. So if we can identify, there's already a map of natural resources. The second thing is to prioritize which of our natural resources do we want to make a national project. right? We have like 37. Let's say we want to face iron ore, gold, and lithium. Okay, iron ore, gold, and lithium is what we want. Okay, we have mapped it out. These are the places that we're going to be exploring in the next 10 years because it's a long-term project. Now that we have mapped it out, we then go, and that's where the people go and say, these places have been mapped out for this. We need you guys to come together and form a consent group or association group. And people have been doing corporate society in Nigeria since the time of the past. So not talking too long, I don't support removing consent. It will fly, but we will not be there tomorrow. Things changes, policies are not reliable. And before you know it, everybody will be waking up in their backyard to be seeing dump trucks in their backyard. And as at now, I have a friend from here. You can all Google it. Today, there's a company called Kogi Iron Ore. Kogi Iron Ore is on the Australian Stock Exchange market. I'm from Nigeria. I've been asking to see those guys for a while, and they didn't even see me because I think I made a mistake by saying, "Hi, I'm from Nigeria. I'd like to know about your project." It's until I went back to Nigeria, I'm like, I don't think the people of Kogi even know that something is happening in their backyard, that a multi-billion-dollar company is there, right? That goes to all other places in Africa. There's a lot of people that have licenses and are just exploring without consent. So to round it up, prioritize the resources, then tell those people in the mapped area to form associations, not just the king, and then to form associations. And then those associations can come as a voice. It's just like having an association of teachers. They know what they want. Even if they fight among themselves, that's not your business. As long as they are speaking as a voice and we tick the box, I think that will fly.
Thank you so much. Honorable Camara, do you have anything to say vis-a-vis consent or ask questions from Dr. Craig before Dr. Craig? Patrick, I see you. Foluke, I see you, please. So, Camara, do you have any inputs? Unmute yourself to make your input, please.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Greg. I think that was very insightful. And maybe just coming back on the critical strategic minerals, I think that's a very good idea because the issues that we had like the land management issues, yes, but also we don't really know what is under our ground. That's only one of the issues because in our part of the world, and we do not have maybe we did not put it as a priority to see how we can have the data from our minerals. How much do we have, where, and what quality minerals we have. So we're just waiting for the promoters to come and do the exploration. And those are the data that we take as government to be able to strategize. So we need to make sure that we put a lot of our resources also on exploration. Just knowing what are the critical minerals that we have, what are the quantity and the quality. That's the first one. The second thing is, yes, we need to make sure that we identify the strategic minerals. And that's what in Guinea, the current government did by making Simandu the strategic development program for the country. Not even for a project, but it's a program. It's called Simandu 2040. So all the development will be around that, the Simandu project. So it's the branding of the country from now on to make sure that, we take that strategic vision. We say that everything we'll do is going to be around that critical minerals to make sure that we take that as a leverage to develop other parts of the economic activities of our country. So I think that's very critical because you cannot just go all over. You need to make sure that you now have a long-term vision and then stick to that to be able to develop other part of things. And in terms of consent, because it's difficult because also we don't have the same political regime. In Guinea, it's not a federal state. It's a republic, and then the central government, and then all the prefectures. So we don't have really very different layers of decision making. So the consent for Guinea is having the consent from the government, and then an official consent with the communities. But there's no written consent at the community or villages level. But they need to be part of the process because there are international laws that would make sure that the people are informed and people get the consent. But there's no sticking a consent agreement that from the communities prior to getting the title. No, but it is all through. That's what I said. The SCIA is important. The park is important. So the discussion needs to be from the go ahead throughout the project. So thank you very much, Dr. Craig, and let's continue the discussions. And I know there's a lot that we can dig in and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll call you in order of how I saw your hands. Foluke Ademokun. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Please, let's keep it short so that I know we all have parties, weddings, and all the things to do today. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Craig. Thank you for your presentation. First, I just want to say, I think one lesson we should learn Nigerians is the best that that government shouldn't just be focused. The federal government should not just focus on the gains in all of this, consent or mining, for themselves. It goes beyond just one person. Now we need to begin to look at what's the benefit, what are the challenges other levels of stakeholders have. And then I also want to ask, you talk so much about consultation, maybe iterative consultation, but the question is, how do you strike a balance, between consultation and expectations? Because from the Nigerian, part, I know that people who go to the field or who engage with communities, they always have this fear about building expectations. And maybe that's why we are having some of the issues that have been generated. So I thought, I should ask you that. And for somebody who's been in the energy sector for some time, the model of the global MOU, in the energy sector, what do we learn, from that in terms of the sector? We are talking, engaging with, communities, maybe leaders or a group of communities. Thank you.
Yeah, let me take all the questions together, the three of you, so that he can answer and exit the meeting, because I know if he has not exited. You understand? Mr. Patrick Odegu. Yeah.
Thank you very much, ma. I want to pay a glorious tribute to women in mining. Our indefatigable madam, your work is engraved in the annals of history. Thank you very much for this. All the three speakers have been absolutely amazing. It has been a very deep exposure on what that need to be done in our own climb to change these gory tales. Let me start by saying, community is very sensitive. It's emotional, but it's highly sensitive. There is sparsity of information, and then there are people that their own mindset on the community is leaning towards negativity. And given Nigeria's peculiarity, it can't compare with most other nations. There are deep-seated division in Nigerian context. So by the time you allow state influence in the mining jurisdictions, it will play against so many Nigerians out-of-state actors. This is one of the things that we need to have at the back of our mind when we talk about state government attempt to participate in the consent giving and other legislative factor they want to ascribe to themselves. But there is something I want to ask. Is it possible? Nigeria has 7 critical minerals of focus. The president came out with executive order 003 and 005. Can we be able to say from now henceforth, can we have a strategic deposit that the state can prescribe from these 7 critical minerals? Can we say that 100,000 metric ton annually, the state will buy 100,000 metric ton through NMPC? I don't know in which nomenclature they want to, which office they want to domicile it. Can we use it to trigger local capacity building in Nigeria? Because minerals, I've seen it, it's all about development. Either you are developing with your minerals or you are being deep dive in poverty. even with your minerals.
Our speakers, let's keep our questions short. Our speakers are, in fact,
so
out of the meeting. Yeah.
So basically, as a question to the discussant, to the presenters, I want to ask, is it possible at all for us to have end product mindset with our solid mineral towards industrialization, in-country industrialization? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, one sentence. Camara wants to step out. I know Madam, our Amaka will still be here with us, but let's round it up. Olushola Olaniyi, please. Lower your hand, Mr. Patrick. Olushola Olaniyi, you can unmute and ask your question.
Thank you, my concern. Thank you for. I will rush this thing because I have a lot, but I will summarize it. My concern is the mining community, the owners of the land. When foreign and local miners, when they come, by the time they finish mining, that the mineral is depleted, they will leave with a lot of damages at times. So, and in mining, sustainability factors like environmental, social, and governance factors, they are of very great importance. And anywhere there were mining minerals, this should be applied. So, but from what Honorable Camara said, she said, even with the effort in Guinea, the communities are not best for it at all. You cannot see the wealth in the area. So I don't understand why it should be like that. And I don't know whether maybe every effort should be made, at least to give the people, the owners of the land, better livelihood.
Okay,
and then through maybe capacity training, forming them into cooperative and things like that, so that it will form, and then let it form part of the requirements for mining, so that they will go and be giving them cash, as she has said, money that they will waste. I think if they empower them, that would be better. And then for Nigeria, I think part of the problem that we have is mining governance. Mining governance that is now having effect on the social and environmental factors. So I think we need to look at it very well, look at the situation, and look at the involvement of local or state governments. This is very, very important. I don't know whether
Thank you.
the new whatever we look into it, and then in the community, everybody should be involved. None should be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you. The last person, please, Mrs. Dan Princeville, Barrister Dan Princeville. So, Camara, you answer these questions, and if Craig is still around, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just have a quick one. Actually, this morning, thank you so much for this webinar. It's been wonderful hearing from the three different scenarios, especially that of Australia, being that Australia has, like he said, 120 different ethnic groups speaking different languages. It's very like our own. So it is wonderful to see that there is a way forward and that it works. And we would, thank you, Dr. Toyosi, for really coming on. But I wanted to say this, before I had to wake my husband up this morning. He's here with me. We are both attorneys, and he has a contribution. I hope it's okay for him to jump in. So let me hand it over to him very quickly.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You know, I feel quite enlightened and educated by the contributions of the panelists, the three contributors. And in particular with Madam Odili, because I am very pleased to hear what she has to say now, because I was one of the emotional speakers, you know, opposing possibility. You know, so when my wife told me that it was online, I came to listen to it, because we are all Africans. And I was particularly pleased with the way Dr. Toyosi Craig spoke. That is, you have not forgotten home. You've linked your experiences in Australia with Abeokuta. I think that is really amazing. We are all Africans, and our reality should be well known to all of us. It's a historical journey that we have all entered, and he took us through that of Australia, which many of us have some limited understanding about. A country, and he showed us the kind of people that were there, related them to those in Abeokuta, and how long and how that journey has been. They are now 3.2% or something like that, if I heard him right. And in many languages and so divided. That is like our country. It's just that we have not been exploited to that extent. And by the grace of God, we would not. Guinea also has its own, all African territories have different languages, so we are very prone to divide and rule. This was the case also in Europe. Every single group, the country has several others within them, and they exploited each other also until they formed empires and wielded everything into one group, one language, one, Otherwise, they were all also quite divided. Our laws must reflect our history, and it must be with wisdom. I wanted also to make a comment on the idea that if you give a monkey the palm wine or something, how do you get it back from the monkey? The truth is, in our case, it is actually the opposite. It is not the person who gave to the monkey. It is the monkey's property that was taken. How do you return the property of the monkey to him? That really is a reverse. We, the indigenous African nations, are the monkeys. We were not given consent. It's an inherent right that we have because we are the owners of the land. So we have to do a lot of changes in our thinking about our present reality. I think sometimes about, like, for the oil sector, energy, that is virtually completed. It is now the turn of the minerals. They have the offshore, onshore rules. When you say offshore belongs to the international community, to nobody, we also know there is one person alone, one group alone that exploits it. So it looks fair as a law that onshore is for the people and offshore is for no one, it's for the international community. But it never works in favor of those who have resources. The speaker from Guinea made clear, why are all the poor places, the mineral places, still poor? And I think we got the answer from Dr. Craig. It is because they do not get royalties. The key issue is not consent. The issue is royalty. The issue is, what is your choice? What do you get for the exploitation? The victim is the owner of the land.
Thank you.
Might be the entire. No, just one last line, please. What I want to plead with us, that in anything we're doing concerning this thing, we must always bear in mind that ultimately there is a victim and there is a villain. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. So, Dr. Toyosi, can you give your closing remark on all these questions?
Thank you so
Camara
much.
will
Thank
do
you
the
so
same
much,
thing.
sir.
Yeah.
I will start from the last speaker. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Ma. There's a song that the great philosopher, Fela Anikulapo, who is also from where I came from, great memory, said, he said, human right now my property. You can't dash me human right. So
Thank you.
the idea of consent, we need to watch it with that lens. It's yours, and it's yours. So I'll move to the next one. Mrs. Ulushola Olani, apologies if I don't put the right titles. You spoke about end of mining. Straightforward, in Australia, you have to return the land to how you met it. That's a lot of work, because there's a lot of money involved. I said that, and I forgot to say a lot of things I said during the glitch. One of the things I said that the previous time that I presented was, we make so much money such that even if they take 30% of whatever you are making now, you will still make profit. It's like selling pure water. It's natural resources, for God's sake, right? How wealthy can the wealthy be? And I'm lucky where I'm working. It's interestingly, I work in the largest private company in Australia. We're lucky not to be listed, right? It's owned by one person. She's like Dangote, literally, in Australia, but she's doing extremely so much that even myself and my wife call her like grandmother, right? So it means it's more than money. And of course, there's a lot of other companies that everything they do is dictated by their shareholders. So that's another lens. Let's not go into that details. But if we are serious with it, and we know that, like I said, the connection to the land, this is our land. It's all you've got. Yes, there's minerals in it, but our children will be here in 200 years, in 300 years. It's not part-time. So we return the lands to how we met it. So when you are doing the mining, there's always an environmental team. There's always a vegetation team. There's always law of protection or biodiversity, right? For example, every animal you see, there's a way you take the picture, you send it to the museum. There's all those things. Yes, we are not there yet, but they are not hard things to do. Matter of if you uproot from here, you take back there and put even grass, though that is possible. Mining governance and local government and everybody in the community, yes, they can have access to it. So when you were speaking about what happened at the end of the mine, that is what happened, if we are serious. And Patrick spoke about end of the product mindset. I want to use the government buying the products. I want to use Indonesia as an example. You would have heard of the story like BHP, I think the biggest mining company, start like 3,000 people, or had to like 3,000 people go in Perth because their nickel mine was not profitable anymore. Why did that happen? Let's all read about Indonesia's case study. Indonesia went to China, brought them home, gave them some conditions like, okay, you guys can mine, but you can mine nickel. We need our people, bring your expert 50%, train our people 50%, you refine it here. We don't mind you being the whole off taker. Fine, we will sell it for you for cheap. But at the end of the day, we are still gaining. It's just like using Ajaokuta, for example. Oh, there's no, it's not like we have what do you call it? The OPEC that regulates the prices for mineral resources yet. You sell it into a free market, right? So for example, if hypothetically, Ajaokuta is working and you say, we are going to be selling iron ore from Nigeria for $100, even if the world is selling it for $150, right? That changes the narrative. And you tell these people that are coming, only 50% of your expert, we've got expert, I'm here, we've got expert at home, we've got expert all over the world. Everybody is passionate about Nigeria working. Then you bring them together, you tell them this. So it's not the government buying, because that will bring us back to the fuel regime. It will hurt us. If we say government should buy from the people and then sell it, that offtake agreement never works. And that's why you see what's in the power sector. Let's leave it to operate in the global market. But we can come and say, now, for example, nickel used to be like 200, 180, this big amount in the global market. China went to Indonesia. They made them employ their people and do all these things. And they started selling this thing for 1/10 of the price. So even the global master company have to fold back and say, we can't compete with Indonesia. Who says Nigeria cannot do that? That would be my answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Toyosi. We can release you now. And I want to expressly thank you. You are the real son of the soil. Omo Yoruba Tata. God bless you. You will succeed. I know the sacrifice you've made in the last 2 days. We appreciate Eshe Gani. Thank you. Honorable Camara, questions are thrown at you. You understand why are regions so close to the mine, that is mining host communities, are the poorest? The people are haggard, the people are miserable, they are plagued with all manner of things. So can you give that straight answer to Mrs. Ademokun so that and then I left her as the last person because she now has to sum up all these things and give us her takeaway from this meeting. That's Mrs. Amaka Odili. So can you give a quick response to that, Camara, please?
Yeah, that's fine. And I think it's going to be exactly, I'm going to close also in thanking you, of course, for the invitation. So that's the question. At the end of the day, what about mining, industrialization? At the end of the day, what we want is to have impacts on our people. That's what we're all working for. And for me, minerals are a way, it's a leverage for development. It's not development. And so the question is why? Let me just maybe just be on the forward thinking approach of not what is not working, but what should be. The first one I think we touched about it is governance. Of course, that's, we say that laws and what is practical on the ground is different. So how to make sure that we can have a forced marriage. That's what I call forced marriage. So make it work for everybody. Secondly, Dr. Craig touched on something. He talked about the owner of the mining, the lady, that, she's like Dangote. But that's exactly what we want to see in the mining sector. We want to have local champions. We want to make sure that through mining, we also develop local rich people. We will also develop local giants that will then have an impact on, in society. So through mining, how do we make sure that at that local level, we can just develop a business community, a strong business community? Not only, women, men farming. No, how do we have strong businessmen and women in that community? And for example, when I set up the Women in Mining in Guinea, one of our objectives was how to make sure that 30% of local contracts will go to women, business women in those areas. It's not done because we just always relegate women to do the nice farming things. But we know that agriculture is not only subsistence agriculture is on everyday living. But how to make sure that we have agro businesses, how people can go from subsistence agriculture to agro business. So that's one thing that, going forward. So if we have a strong business community within or around mining areas, I think then we have ripple economic impact within the area. So let's think, how do we develop the Dangotes into in our communities? Secondly, it's going to be at the national level or international relations. Dr. Greg also talked about OPEP. How the OPEP try to regulate the prices of oil and etc. And actually, I'm doing my PhD on looking the opportunities to put an African institutions in charge of countries that are exploiting exporting and exporting minerals. So how do we have the same structure and at the African level, so we can then have a say on the international scene? Because if we don't know if we don't have any influence on the price, on the quantity, etc., then we don't have a say. So how do we make sure that we have a strong African institution to work as a globe, as a block, so we can have a say on the prices of our minerals on international level, and then maybe have stock exchange market in Africa instead of going to London to see how much is the price for gold and etc. And so that's the second point. Third, again, I'll come back to the impact. Consent. For me, consent needs to be throughout. It needs to be throughout, and that's better consultation from the communities throughout with all the stakeholders, because this needs to be multi-layer stakeholders approach. It's not only about just Ministry of Mine and Ministry of Land. It has to be all layers, from the local villages up to the international partners. We all need to work together to see how we can have mining as a leverage for national, local, and communities impact. Donc, thank you very much. That's the very quick answer that I have. Like I said, big topic, and then I'll hopefully we'll come back to it next time. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Camara, my darling, thank you so much. We are really, really blessed. Your paper, naturally, every participant that registered, we have a copy. I just want to add something which you said earlier, and at times when people are responding, the issue of capacity building. Capacity building is a critical component of the mineral development sector, and it has to be at all levels. You build the capacity for people to be able to engage. When the local people cannot engage, you say you are holding a stakeholders meeting. It's the mining companies and the ministry officials who will come and talk all through. Then you bring in illiterates who cannot even write their names. You understand? That is why you have civil society organizations. But you find out that the ministry officials at times even compete or relegate the civil society organizations, thinking there's something to it. You see, when we bring people together to the table, it makes things a lot easier. And then at the time of consent given, it becomes a lot easier because it will have been broken down for them to understand. Building equally at the point of compensation is equally very important for you to educate people to know. Someone like Camara said this, somebody who has never seen $50,000 before, you give 50,000, he will go crazy. He will forget about his future and sell his future for just $50,000 at the moment in the present or in the present circumstance. So these are things I need we take. If we continue, we have spent almost 2.5 hours or something. I just want to use this opportunity to thank those of you who believed in women in mining and follow us. Yes, the hacker tried to destabilize us, but we say no. So I will call in on our sister, Mrs. Amaka Odili, you understand, to round up her submission, her take home from here, assure us that consent, you understand, you understand, must stay in the Nigerian mining sector, or else it will create crisis. Because we can see, we have heard from different positions, you understand. Consent is an international principle, you understand, and I'm sure you understand. Let's hear her position. So, Madam Odili, we will want you to come and give us a roundup. That is your final submission on all the questions that has been asked. And if we can still take just one more question to address to speak to Mrs. Odili directly, if there are any hands still up, you understand. But I think she has more than she can chew right away to answer questions. So, Mrs. Odili, please.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you,
Yes, thank you so much.
Hello.
Engineer Janet.
Okay,
Hello.
sorry, sir. Madam Odili, Mr. Patrick Ojeka, our director, a former director ASM, is online. Yes, I call on you, sir, to make your submission before Madam Odili rounds up. Sorry, sir.
Okay, good morning to all participants.
Good morning, sir.
And those to Women in Mining for sustaining this initiative. Quite educating, and it has created a platform where our viral ideas and minds are being shared. So incidentally, I came on board towards the tail end of Mrs. Odili's presentation, but I am glad that Dr. Craig has, from his presentation, the summary he did, has answered some of the questions. It is very, very important that we share ideas, but then some of our own outcome, we should be very careful how it comes on board. I'm saying this particularly to the issue of the veracity or the power of the national document to the Minerals and Mining Act. All right. We understand too, just like if I put a simple analogy now, a man does not just see somebody's daughter and walk away with the daughter and claim that he has a right to be the husband, unless he receives the consent of the family. So traditionally, we came to inherit this traditional function before the modernization. Of course, the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act is not cast in iron. It has undergone lot of reviews and review prior to its package and the presentation. But of course, the document, no document on earth is a perfect document. As time goes on, I have been worried that these lectures we hold, somebody should be taking the communique, and that communique becomes the contribution of women in mining tomorrow to any future review of these documents. The issue of consent, yes, is being abused, not by the government. The intentions of government is very good and clear, but you can agree with me too that there are many traditional rulers in this country who override direct family ownership of land, and without minding the state or the federal government. I know of a number in the Southwest who will, in your state, who will tell the people that the miners that if you do not collect consent from me, or whatever you are doing is null and void, whether there are the direct ownership of land there or not. So it is the implementation that is the issue we face in Nigeria. And like my brother Patrick Ojegu said, these things have to be
taken because the peculiarity of Nigeria is critical. There are opportunities that people take advantage of. And as human beings, we are not God. We will not be able to seal up all of those loopholes that create these opportunities for them to abuse. So to all of us who have been on this platform, and to women in mining, I say kudos to you and more grace to you, Ebo. Thank you. I'm glad. I'm excited at all the contributions. We'll continue to share knowledge. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, our dear Oga, our very, very dear Oga. We appreciate that contribution, and I can assure you that everything, this is the 41st edition B, will soon be binded, you understand, for the public to see. Every paper presented will be available for all to see, and we have recordings, and if people go to WIMTI website, you understand, you will find, you can download, everything, nothing is edited, you understand, it's there for all to see. And even our conference now, we have volunteered Professor Ako, who are doing peer review of papers presented in our conferences so that they can be internationally accepted, you understand? So we are silently contributing and praying that the ministry will be able to appreciate and see what we do, you understand? In other climes, you understand, government supports this group of people for what they are doing. And Oshiba himself went ahead to say, is an essential part of the system, the fourth arm of system, to do what needs to be done. Mrs. Odili, you have to wait for 2 minutes. I see Jumoke Fajemirokun stands up. I see Ambassador Folakemi stands up. So let me call Jumoke Fajemirokun. Please, can you quickly make your statement before Madam Odili comes up? Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for this this session today. I think it's been very enlightening. The speakers have done really well in throwing the different perspectives to the issue. I recall at the time when this consent requirement was introduced, when the Mining Act was passed, and my worry at that time was that it was going to lead to projects being hampered, because the communities will seek to, or rather the owners will seek to take advantage and not have the proper consideration in issuing the consent or not issuing the consent. And that was a key concern at that time. And now, 15 years after, we see how it has played out. And I think all in all, it's a failing of the governance system to put in place the proper process or requirements for seeking this consent. So we basically allowed the system to work for itself, for the stakeholders to define how they want to give consent. There was no clarity as to whether it's the owner, whether it's traditional owner, whether it's the community, and we just allowed things to happen, and we find ourselves where we are now. I take on board the various, where the international community is going in terms of the requirement for prior and informed consent. But ultimately, I think we just need to find a way that we effectively educate the grassroots. This is where the NGOs come in, so that they're not so money motivated when it comes to giving their consent. They look at the bigger issues, and you can have frank conversations with them. We probably need to also look at the stage at which a requirement for consent will need to be gotten, because if you're looking at the exploration stage, there's no clarity as to whether or not you will proceed to after year 1, and then you now have these hurdles that you have to go with. We have to consider whether that is appropriate at that stage or whether we need to bring it forward at a different stage. But there are different things that I think we need to consider, but ultimately it's how we balance the competing interests, how we educate the grassroots, and how we effectively govern the sector. Those are the things that will help us succeed and all benefit from our mineral wealth. So thank you very much, and for this session, and looking forward to seeing the papers. Unfortunately, I missed the presentation by on Guinea, but I look forward to seeing the papers and possibly the recording. Thank you.
Yes, I'll share it definitely with you, because you raised a very vital position, and that position is that implementation. Implementation strategy, you don't throw the baby and the bathwater away. If implementation is failing, we should be doing a critical analysis. Why are we failing in terms of implementation? And corruption is always an underbelly, and touch me not. In this country, we know of KBACs, you understand, who are mining recklessly and destroying, and nobody's challenging them. They are in charge, you understand, touch me not. So if because of that, we now want to create crisis, I tell you, the consequences at the end of the day, you understand, will not be fair. Then the issue of the ruling party, we are the ruling party, we can do anything we want. Or when we are anxious, you understand, to use our political office, you understand, to compensate whatever. It boils all down to a question of governance. We must be bold to speak. And that's why I said, once I take these seats, I'm always very bold to say anything I need to say, you understand, because history will judge you right or wrong. So implementation is a major thing you have raised. And at what stage do you issue consent? Do you issue consent at exploration stage? No. Why should you issue consent at exploration stage? So those are things, Madam Odili, you understand. And so honestly, we are ready to support you, you understand, in that, even as a small group from these participants today, you understand, to make sure you get the best out of what you are doing. Ambassador Folakemi, Madam Rose, I'll come to you. Ambassador Folakemi, Madam Rose is the last speaker, please. Ambassador Folakemi.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much, Madam President. I think my comment is just a comment, will be like an offshoot of the last speaker about implementation. After hearing Honorable Camara, and when she said that she goes to all this mining area and there are no developments. And then Dr. Craig said that where he works in Australia, the woman that owns the business is doing a wonderful job. I believe in Africa, our main challenge is sincerity of purpose. We might have a perfect document for everything we needed, the consent, everything, but how sincere are the people, the stakeholders, the lawmakers, the community leaders, except the people that actually owns the land? Those are the people that are victims at the end of the day. So I think it's something that we should let our conscience even guide us in some of the things we do. We are not sincere about development, and that is a major problem. We can have a perfect document, we might implement, but at the end of the day, how sincere are we to developing our communities through mining? That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. God bless you. Madam Rose, let me sing your praises. A wonderful woman, a champion, somebody who is never too tired to support women in mining. We want to say thank you. You can have the floor. Yeah.
Okay, well, the last two speakers have made it very, very simple and easy for me, so I don't take anybody's time. I must congratulate you and the team for putting up such an incredible presentation. I was actually just going to emphasize on the issue of clear-cut, just like Jumoke said, clear-cut instructions or directives or whatever it is that is inserted in the law. It's a little bit vague, the issue of consent. Who exactly is to give consent? I know it says you must get a community, whatever. Maybe we should actually have it straightforward, very straightforward, very clear-cut who is responsible for this consent in the community. And if it's all of them to play a part, then you put all of them and they must all consent to it. So we don't have all this eventually having conflicts within the areas that we're trying to help as far as this mining is concerned. And then from there, maybe we and then capacity building. I think it's very key. We can never, educate these people enough. So much has already been going on. So much has been left to get to this point. So wherever we find ourselves, wherever we are, I think it's key that we just keep on educating the people. If you have such things going on around you, educate the people that are concerned. Take the time. They might not understand it, but educate them. We are being educated here on this platform, but mostly as elites. Those local people, maybe we should take this kind of this also is capacity building. Maybe we should take time and do a little bit more within the communities. Encourage those. We have local chapters and all that. I think the local chapters should actually really, really go into educating the people often enough so that the understanding is drummed in their consciousness. I think most people still don't know. And because they get this little kobo there, they are just carried away with it and they don't understand. So let me not overflow things people have said. There's a lot of things that have been said that are right. And there's a lot of things I have said that are coming up, you know, fresh, that we have to rethink and see how we can, you know, lift up. And somebody has also said maybe this lecture be packaged into, I think it was the JECA, have it all packaged and let it form a contribution to the sector, so that if this, I don't know whether I think the mineral mining this review
The
is still on.
director is here. Yeah, the director is here. Yeah, the director is here. Yeah.
Okay, so that it forms part of, you know, stakeholders' contribution to what might enter into the new law when it comes up. So let me just leave it there. It's the same thing we're saying round and round, but I really appreciate that there's a platform like this. You'll be very surprised. I'd been driving and I was listening to the lecture almost for an hour driving. But thank you so much for everything.
Thank you
to all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to assure you that already what you said, we realize the gap just like when we started the G4M. Right now in Nasarawa, from 22nd to 24th, we are there speaking Hausa and building the capacity of the local people in 5 of the local governments where active mining is taking place in collaboration with Nasarawa State Ministry of Women Affairs and their Ministry of Education. It takes a lot of lobbying to be able to get these people to come, and then, you know, funding, because these ones you have to provide their transport fare and things like that to move from one village, because the local people too are being spoiled. When you talk of corruption is multi-layered in Nigeria. People don't even want to do anything on their own. Even for this one, people will tell you, send me credit as if they are doing you a favor. And I always say, in fact, if you watch now, I posted some things on the platform. Okay, just read and have some bits of knowledge. You understand, if you don't want to join online. So at the end of the day, we will set up a committee specifically for this to help our sister. You understand, in office, nobody is a master of everything. What we've done today, about 4 or 5 of us will be reached to say, please, do we sum up all these things we have said totally with Nigerian position? After we have sent the papers presented today, we look at it, and definitely Mr. Patrick Ojeka, you understand, will be part of that game. That's as elders, that's our contribution to help the sector. So, Madam Amaka, we are calling on you to round up. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Your coffee must be cold, or you must have taken 4 cups now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Janet. Thank you, Women in Mining. Thank you so much. The presenters, I'm seriously thrilled by Mr. Craig and Camara's presentation. Camara's presentation gives us overview of what happens in Guinea. But there's something she said that is like, this problem is everywhere. Why is it that the communities where we get these mineral resources are very impoverished? It's a very key question that we should take home and ask ourselves and find an answer. There's something in the system of every African country that impoverishes communities. And so that takes us back to the issue of consent, because consent is actually brought into the law to give voice to the owner. And I quite quietly disagree with the last speaker that said it's vague. It says you get consent, Section 100 of Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, the owner or occupier. And you see, under the Land Use Act, the owner is the state government. The occupier is the person that has the right of occupancy. So that's why we are now saying the state government is using it to begin to regulate mining operations. And that's the question for another day. You see, listening to Witte, when we had our stakeholders meeting, I danced around with his opinion. No, remove consent. Let's go back to the old way. Like I now raised the analogy of carrying a cup of palm wine and give to monkey, he drank. Go and collect cup now. So that's like, it wasn't there before. People did not really, they might be uncomfortable of, mining operations starting in the land, and then they are compensated. They didn't even know when the license was given. The next thing is they saw mining they didn't know when the consent was, whoever gave consent was the federal government that licensed now. And I begin to see, it looks like what we have in Guinea, or it says you don't get consent from individual, but government informs them. That's another problem. Will it work in Nigeria? Because we begin to think around what will actually work in our system because of the nebulous problems you have with consent now. And so,
I hope we didn't lose her. Hello, Madam Amaka. I hope we didn't lose her. Anyway, I think she had made her point, and we want to really say thank you. Like I said, some of us, we don't have to meet. All we just have to do is work online. Mr. Patrick Ojeka, Rosudong, those of you who have been in government before, Patrick Odiegu, Madam Sidikat, you understand, and myself, and Barrister Dan Princeville. We will sit down and look through this after considering the paper and do a positional paper, to support Mrs. Amaka Odili to be able to, you understand, or send it as something coming from this meeting, you understand, to buttress whatever reservoir they have. One thing again in Nigeria is that it's for government to take it and government might not take it. Then you can do something. National Assembly might take it, National Assembly might not take it. But I can tell you that continuously, if consent is ever removed, it will be a major source of agitation that the mining will never take place in Nigeria. Mining will never be dependent in Nigeria.
Finally, I am just advising that we come together and find the way it works. It will work better than how it's working now. I've not really come up with something that is acceptable in the system, to change the narrative of what we're experiencing now. So we have to think about it and come up, because the consent has to be, we wouldn't leave it the way it is. Emirs giving consent, state governments, individuals who don't even know when consent is given. But if you go to mining cadastre, you see a consent letter. And then, like the issue, I think the one of Guinea, government informing them, or the government, state government issuing the consent, informing the owner, is that better? Will it work? Anything that we think that will work better than what we have now is what I'm advocating. I'm no more against consent. We have to leave it in the law. But the way it is now, it has not really worked well. So let's just look at a system that will work for us in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Finally, we have come to the end of today's meeting. We have shamed the hackers. I want to say thank you to all of you that participated. Honestly, it was traumatizing to see what happened on Thursday, and I'm happy we're able to overcome it. So if we delayed you while we were trying to log in, no, it was because of what we went through, and it's going to be like this. So it's better you get used to our logging in procedure, where you register when we send a notice to you. Once you register, we will have you on our database. So when you are coming in, we know who and who is coming in. Yes, we all enjoy sex. We are mature people. We all enjoy sex in our homes. So but we don't want to be entertained by it. You understand? When we settle down to want to hear some other things beyond that. So as much as possible, when you equally want to log online, use your proper names, because when you come with names not known, most times people will shut you out. People will not want you to participate. It's better you have 10 productive minds than to have a 100 member group, you understand, who are not really contributing or out to disrupt the meeting. On behalf of women in mining Nigeria, I want to thank all of you, especially my ogas, my sisters, you understand, retired but not tired civil servants who always give us support and encourage us. And then Patrick Odiegu, I want to really commend you, because I can see your aggression. I can feel your pain, and I can feel your zeal. And I know at the end of the day, it will pay off. You understand? Mining, when you look at mineral governance, is one of the most difficult things to balance in developing country, because of the various things tied to it, corruption, limited knowledge and things like that. But I'm sure if we are persistent like this and we keep on doing it, we will get there. We will get there someday and it becomes better. I want to thank you, Jumoke Fajemirokun, Daiwo Duro Toye, all of you that stayed to the end. I want to just say thank you to you. Next month, same time, you understand the date is not changing, third week of, third Thursday of November, again, we are gathered together, to look at another contemporary discussion, you understand, that affects us directly, impacts us directly in the mining sector. And if you have presentations, if we ever call on you to do presentations, please follow the proper standard procedure of writing papers so that sitting down to write papers is not easy. So when you make presentations, so that your presentations can be used, you understand, professionally and published, you understand, in your name, you understand. That's the level our professors have assisted us to get to, and we are anxious to do that. So once again, Rosudong, Folakemi, Dorcas, Abe, Mana, LM, I don't know who that is, Feyi, Omokore, and all others, I want to say thank you and thank you. God bless you. Enjoy your Saturday. Go to your weddings, go to your birthday ceremonies, go and rock and relax over the weekend. Sorry to have taken a part of your morning, but I'm really grateful. Thank you. God bless you and bye. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. You too have a very wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Even the water are needed to be watered.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you already missing home? Because we will be going for different outings. Are you missing?
I'm going to bed to sleep because I've not slept, so I'm going to bed to sleep. It's 4:35 a.m.
Madam,
Madam. Yes, sir.
You're there for Georgia. The firehouse, they come. No problem. When you were calling Camara,
after the conference,
Camara,
after the conference, I needed to come and have some rest. And until I finish waiting that they do here. You understand? For Nigeria.
Are you sure you ever finish to do the thing? Okay.
I will.
Don't worry.
By God's grace.
Okay.
Madam Salah, once again, please accept our deepest condolences.
Oh,
what happened?
Madam lost her husband.
Oh, my dear sister.
Madam is also a fantastic, strong woman. A free spirit.
My heart flows to
yes,
you.
A free spirit.
Oh, my goodness.
Jumoke?
Thank you.
I took you out of bed early. I hope your husband is not complaining. Auntie, all you ladies that I took out of your bed, just go and beg your husband to say, yeah, you have to get knowledge.
Madam, take time, President, take time,
Saturday is the time to rock now.
No. Take time,
Ojeka. It was a Saturday morning well spent. Ojeka, you had to use the example of somebody coming to carry somebody's daughter from home.
But that's a very good
you're trying to protect your
without the consent of the family. And
you
say,
are trying to protect your beauty queen. You know
but that example really drove
Thank you
down
so
the
much,
point.
ma. Thank you, ma. Thank you, sir.
What Ojeka failed to understand is that it's Steve culture. It's Steve culture to actually pick up a wife from the market. Once you carry her into your house, to your home, she's legally your wife.
Patrick, I don't blame you. That is why you have
beautiful thing you have said. You see the beautiful thing you have said. But jokes apart, apart. The thing is that the government of Nigeria is the thief. How are they the thief? Oyibo man came to our country. You understand? When I went to read law, that was the first question I asked that. King Dosimu, he said, King Dosimu, Abi, seeded the whole of this out of ignorance because they gave him gin and mirror. So we ended up being slaves, being everything. They took over. They have Queen's Drive. They have everything divided, created segregated community. We are living in slums. But when we regained back independence, what should the privileged people who led us do? You understand? They continued in that state.
Absolutely.
How can you tell me that I have a land? Wait, that I have a land, that land I have, you understand? I must come and take permission from you. You understand? To have it a lease for 99 years. What do you mean by that? You see, the truth of the matter is that if we don't go into, right now, I'm doing a course on natural resources governance. And every time I read, go and look at it and look at the RGI for Nigeria. Look at the analysis, look at the conditions, look at the mining sector, what is happening. This battle we are fighting now, we are going to fight it even in another arena very soon because of automation.
Very good.
That is taking us, you understand, to unusual places we have left before that we cannot mine. People are talking of deep sea mining now. Seabed mining, you understand? People are talking of harvesting, mining asteroids in the sky. So when you look at all those things, who is the owner of that? You understand? And the environmental consequences we will all bear. When the trouble come, the poor man and the rich man will bear it. The rich man even now have money to take care of himself. So I don't think it's fair that an Oba is disobedient. Is still because of the suppressive tendency, because the laws are not there. If the laws are executed, that is no respecter of anybody. You understand? You commit crime, Anoba, you commit crime, you are arrested, you are degraded. It won't happen again. But the untouchable syndrome is what has led to what we are seeing. And we always rush back to take it on the common man. You understand? We now say, oh no, it's the common man that this is, the common man that did that. No, is it their fault? Oyibo came, did something, and then we took over and we continued in that state. You understand? And we say it should be. And then even on the part of civil servants, what budgetary allocation have you given them, Papa, to be able to monitor effectively? You give one vehicle, you understand, to a zone to parade the how many mine sites. What can they do? You understand?
I think one of the things that we must find a way to deploy at scale in Nigerian solid mineral sector is digitalization and digital monitoring. We must use a point of truth, blockchain point of truth, to start domiciling value locally. Because if we allow what is going on now, the nation as an entity cannot really optimally benefit from the resources. I'll give you an example. There was an analysis that we carried out. At our little site, we discovered we have over 60 different elements. Now, some of the things that we can send out, you can say that you are sending out 20% lead. But what are the constituents that makes up the 99.99%? Those things are not waste. They are regarded as waste, but they are really not waste.
But sorry, my darling brother. Sorry, let us not waste time. Let me interject. Just what you have just said now. Do you have the capacity for it? Wait, let me tell you, when I say, do you have the capacity for it? So a nation that is serious will not look at mining from a single lens. Mining has so many things attached to it, incorporated to it. Education is very, very important in mining. You understand? Because you use it at all levels, whether it's at an exploration stage, whether it's feasibility, construction, mine development, mine decommissioning, and all that. You need it. But how do you apply blockchain when even ordinary in the office, we are still carrying fire? You understand? I'm asking. I'm asking.
It's quite painful.
When you see have officers who are trained, who in the budget allocation each year buy laptop, buy computer, cannot even operate laptop. I'm asking. So look, what blockchain? Answer that question. So when you go, because when you talk of blockchain technology, blockchain is very good. You want to do responsible tracking and sourcing and tracking. Where is the energy? You understand that you want to use to operate computer. Do you know the number of people who want to join now, who say, oh, my laptop, my something else died, there's no light to charge. Assuming I'm in the office, I'll be able to join. You understand? So you see, when we say some of these things, they are beautiful. But
no, what I'm actually referencing is at a certain point, we need to start fighting back. We know that our institution does not want this change. Our institution are very much against change because they love the way things are going. Most of the empty properties in Abuja, who owns them? These are people, civil servants, right? Public servant and civil servant are the owners. So they love this inherent corruption that is so highly pervasive and embedded. So whenever you talk about technology that will enable people to see things from a point of truth, they don't want it. Of course, they will fight against you. Some of them don't have the capacity or technical knowledge around it, but there are few in between. The overriding aspect is that they do not want that truth to come out. And once we continue to harbor and tolerate the things the way they are, nothing will change.
Patrick,
I am here with you.
Yeah, I know you are here with me. Your session, be it as good as it is, you should understand too the limitations of those officers that you are directing your attack on, because when you find that as a director, you don't have the final authority to accept what concept you have, it becomes an issue. You have principles, and once the principles sit on your recommendations or suggestions, that is the end of the bit.
Thank you.
Now, the civil servants are just like the military men, regimental setup, and they have a line of authorities. So the field officer should not be blamed for whatever is not getting in the field. That is why the input of stakeholders as these men, women in mining and other stakeholders, their input are very, very critical.
Who is
Hello?
that? Please continue, sir, Mr. Ojeka. Please continue.
So we will have to get to understand those things from all of those perspectives.
The underlying thing, sir. The underlying thing killing the developing country. Not Nigeria alone, not anything, is corruption. And the corruption is top to bottom. The only thing where you see movement, where you see changes, you understand, is in leaders who choose to live above board. People cite Botswana today. Go and look at what brought Botswana change. Botswana is able to grow their GDP, you understand, from $12,500 per head to what? To from $3,500 per head to $12,500 per head. Why? Because the leader came and looked at it and said, these agreements we cannot have with you. Dubious. You understand? Our diamond, this is what we want. If you don't want, get out of the place. Those people bluffed initially when they saw that government will not budge. The man did not negotiate into his private pocket. The man did not say, oh, give me a certain percentage and continue to do your nonsense. So everybody was able to fall in order. And then when a nation pretends to ignore the problems of their people, you understand? Look at who is paying any living wage in Nigeria today. In my office now, I cannot look at anybody and say, oh, you didn't come to work, because what can I pay? You understand? So the thing is that you turn the civil service a social security system. You are not paying a functional wage. So how do you expect people not to be corrupt? The civil servant
very good question. Absolutely.
Then the civil servant sees you. You understand? Even the civil servant's position is not guaranteed. A civil servant, nobody drove me out of government.
Thank you, madam.
You understand? Nobody drove me out of government. I drove myself out of government. You understand? You know why? Because I am the type that I don't take nonsense from anybody. I don't. It has always been part of my own life. You understand? So, and I'm lucky that thing has helped me. How many civil servants can look at the boss eyeball to eyeball and say, this is the correct position? Somebody, especially politics, now destroyed everything. A non-entity who did not go to school is coming to assess. You understand? Because it's coming here. It's coming to assess your project, to say it and give recommendation and pass your bill.
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
What are you saying? And he will be the one to vet it because he has the ears of the minister and he cannot speak a word of English. He does not understand what you are doing.
Those are the challenges.
Have you looked at the Ministry of Solid Minerals? That unfortunately, you understand, we are not in the air, but let's speak the truth to ourselves. You understand? A ministry where at times even you don't have professionals at all at the top to even understand what you are doing.
All the time. All the time.
Whoever has a sweet mouth to be able to talk to that minister or that director or that anything. So those are the things killing Nigeria. It's not a question of you understand this thing you are talking about. It's not.
And that's why it's very painful to generalize.
Yeah, of course, yes.
It's just a generalization.
Some civil servants
So,
who are there,
and then
who don't even speak
some of
Shishi.
us know. Some of us know how we have paid dearly for trying to make things stand, but the generalization just sweeps us in.
Just give me 1 second.
No, there's always going to be an
example.
exception
No.
to the rule.
Patrick, let me give you an immediate example. My daughter is the retired, what today is it comptroller, whatever, because I never even moved near the office, general of immigrations that just left. What was our offense? What was our offense? The thing is that they brought, I can say it, they brought this thing, approval for arms, contract on arms. You understand? She looked at it that we have a vendor, a lady brought the thing. She didn't know the lady was from presidency. And she now said, lady, we cannot give you everything. We have somebody who was supplying this thing before, you understand, who has a track record, who has performed. That was our offense. The following day, you understand?
Okay.
She got a letter. That okay, you have even spent your time. Okay, come and start going. And of course, she was pulled down something. So what are we talking about? Nigeria, if you look at it from the surface, you'll be condemning people. But if you dig down, you will know you have people who are cerebral in government, who have nothing to show. Do you understand? Who have nothing to show for their. I have great friends who are in government. Do you understand? Who have nothing. Before middle of the month, they are broke. You understand? Asking for money. You understand that you are supporting them. So our system is structured to be corrupt. And if you are a chemist student, you understand the principle of entropy. You will know that is what we like in Nigeria. Entropy.
Madam.
Madam is back to school.
But seriously.
Seriously.
Now school they do here now. So my head is
you don't need law again. You don't go to chemistry class.
Madam, the whole thing is borders to our structure.
Corruption.
Wait. Our structure is on ground to favor our colonized masters. And
you are right.
We're working for it. So don't blame anybody. It's the system. It's not today that it started. It's been on and on. So anybody that wants to be against the system will not go far.
Where will you go?
You will not.
Where will you go? Who will give you? Who will give you oil license? Who will give you? Who will give you? Who will give you say something? I beg.
Because
Stop blaming anybody. What I just want to charge those of us today.
Patrick,
commit yourself to whatever.
Madam Rosendong is there. Do you know that she was a victim of just what a simple thing, pettiness? She was victimized and removed from a position that she was driving and setting a good foundation for. Until today, that unit in the ministry is just like a roller coaster.
Roller coaster, no direction. No direction.
No direction.
No direction till now. I can tell you.
Very, very funny. Very terrible.
We local NGO.
The issue with stand.
52 countries participated. You understand? And you don't have a place, you don't have anything to see about investment promotion to say this is investment promotion department. Conakry, all these other countries came. You understand? What are we talking about? You understand? Because we just don't think. But well.
The challenges are so innumerous, and I believe that what we just need to do, like I said again, is to find small soldiers, small enclave that we cannot build upon. Like my take is that if we have 7 minerals of focus, because it has to be practicalized. If not, people will be. People desperately will be exhausted even before anything happens. If we have 7 minerals of focus, let's drive out at least 3 big mining companies established in all those 7, 3 of focus. We can't be talking about things and every year we're saying about the same thing.
You know, this guy has given you answer, Patrick. This guy has given you answer.
Yes.
And you understand, he has told you that government does not have hand in this. Government can only create enabling environment. I keep on saying something. You know the problem with our miners in Nigeria? Initially, you know, I was driving this thing, even here. As of yesterday, if you look at my table here, put on light, I will show you. Graphite, you understand? This is graphite here. Because why? I went for a meeting and they are looking for this thing. But tell our people, everybody wants to do it one by one. No. Which country is coming to invest in a reserve they can invest? This is graphite here. Which company is coming to invest in a country where they can exhaust the reserve in 2-5 years? No. Until we all learn to work together. You understand? Structure JVC agreements amongst ourselves.
Collaboration.
Collaboration, yes. That is it.
But we don't do that.
We are never ready to be part of it.
These people that
we still need to collaborate.
Have they engaged? Bring in your lawyer and say, you lawyer, use your professional something to buy equity from me. You use your experience to buy this, your networking experience to buy this for me. But we are carrying license and we are saying, oh, we want this. It's never going to happen. And that is why Tinubu, no government, because now they are speaking the truth to ourselves. You remember on our mining platform, I went to meet the ear of Tinubu, and when I heard what they said, I knew they were right. Because these people equally consult. There's a season and time for everything. Lithium today is trending. Lithium used to be a waste. And in another 5 years, I tell you, nobody is going to be looking at terrestrial mining because of the grade of mineral resources you find in the deep sea bed. That will be the ultimate where major people are going to. So if that is the case, which governments will not want to make quick money by looking for investors who are big? So the thing the indigenous investors can do is to form partnership. Jumoke Fajamiroko is here. To form partnership, you understand, with one another, with big companies, you understand? And then that's where we're able to get something. For example, we are talking about the studies, you understand? How many people can afford to pay, you understand, for NEI at $250,000? If you don't have this thing, how many big companies will come? And what is the reservoir size? What is the size of our country? The way we see the map of Nigeria deceives us. See somebody telling us that a district in Western Australia is more than the whole of West Africa. You understand? So what are we talking about? If we don't come together, we'll be talking this, we'll be talking, I said, see, may God spare our life. Camara was talking about it. How many people, if we don't open it up ourselves, honestly, thinking one government is going to be doing something, we just be agitating our stakeholders. That's the truth.
No government.
No, you're right. You're right.
Administrator, regulator.
Yeah, administrator, regulator. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Guess what? We get back to you. You understand?
Okay. I will talk.
Auntie Okunowo, how is Florida, ma?
Yeah?
How is Florida, ma?
Oh, she's fine.
It is well. So I wish we have a lot to do together. And I'm just begging us because investors keep coming. Like investors who wanted graphite now. All they want to see is that who is the real owner of the license? What's the size of the something? And then somebody will see the man who gave me documents. I called him yesterday when they wanted to have meeting. Apparently, it's not even his license. He doesn't even understand the procedure. He said he has a license. He said he has. I said, Mr. Clifford, what are you talking about? You understand? This is not correct. You have exploration license. You say you have license. Exploration license. He said he can use the license anywhere. You have the exploration license to do gold, and you are going to Kogi to do something in Kogi. I said, are you serious? So that's not how to work. That's not how to work.
That is how they are giving.
Oh my God.
This thing.
No, honestly. Like if I have somebody with good reservoir estimates, you understand, some measure of what it looks like and a good area, you understand, and has all this documentation, investors are ready. You understand? Graphite, they are scrambling for graphite here.
Yeah, the sector is maturing. The sector is still at a growing stage. It's still maturing. I think what is important is that many of these our assets are not fully exploited. to some reasonable extent that we can even start inviting partnership. My take is that for polygon end, I think that we should end up our own exploration. We have started doing drilling. We've drilled a couple of holes. We'll come up with an interim report. But it's not all. We must finish all our drilling before we can even think of inviting anybody. If you invite people when you don't even know what you have, on what basis are you inviting them? To come and do what?
I can tell you on the basis for which you will invite them. Patrick, we are talking this morning as family. I will tell you, yes. And other professionals are here. If I'm wrong, I'm ready to say I'm wrong. You see, minerals are guided by about 3 factors. The volatility factor, the obscurity factor is another factor. Then technology factor. That is, technology makes it obsolete, makes it relevant, depends on what. Those three critical factors are very important when you are looking at minerals. So a mineral that is trending today, and I will give you a typical example. When Chile was raining, Chile, you understand, they got nitrates, you understand, organic nitrates, and they were making good money. What happened? When Rio Tinto came, Rio Tinto discovered that they can do laboratory inorganic phosphates. That's killed that industry completely. You understand? So that tells you that every mineral, you understand, technology, and not in this even dynamic age where technology is moving fast, bang, 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 bang. So if you have something, while you are still saying you are trying to document, that documentation stage, you can look for partner that you will document together to complement your exploration, because you don't have the capacity. Whatever you are doing, you understand, whatever you are doing, for it to be acceptable, has JOG standard to follow. And that JOG standard, for you to embark on JOG standard, the minimum they will take from you is $250,000. You understand? So if that is it, so that means you cannot generate that report. The report you are still generating, you are generating a report for your own local usage. Already you know. So if you find somebody who says, see, I can do this, about 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 people can even now come together. At the end of the day, what does it translate to? You understand? You heard what Toyosi said. You understand? I met Toyosi when we went for a program in Harvard. You understand? Very brilliant guy. The thing is that you look beyond that, because the profit associated with it, if there's no greed, it's much. It will wipe it off in one swap. But if you wait and you are waiting, number one, are you even in control of your age? Are you in control of your time? Are you in control of your energy? Those are externalities you are not even giving consideration to for the number of years you are put into what you are doing. It is not oil and gas that you do, you get it, or liquefied or natural, you understand? Mining, you are dealing with matrices. You are dealing with positioning of ores. The complications are there. So for me, I tell those of you that have worked, and that is why the banks will just be dancing with you. They will not move near you, because that is too risky for them to do anything. You must look for some private individuals that have deep pockets. And $250,000, I tell you, if you get people who are really deep, in Nigeria, it's nothing for people who have stolen money. But if you are looking at it, that, oh, this thing has so much, it has this, honestly, Yoruba say, nightfall, you understand? When we just go on it until night we come, you understand?
No, this is a very deep and revealing and learning curve. We're all in this school together. I think the spectrum and the platform is quite dynamic. So thank you, everybody.
So
let's go have a nice day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you
very much.
Go and
a fantastic outing.
Who is Abe Mana? Who is Abe Mana? Abe Mana, LMCSA. I almost did not admit the person because I was thinking it was a hacker. It's okay. So enjoy your weekend. God bless you, sirs. God bless you, man. Let me go and sleep.
Well
God
done.
bless you. Go and sleep.
God bless you. Pamela,
Thank you, ma. You too,
Thank
ma.
you. God
Go and
bless you.
sleep. Go and sleep.
Bless you.
Oh.
Please read what I posted on our line. It's very educative. It's part of my classes. When I find something I think we can easily grab, I just post it.
Congratulations on
You
going to
posted
Love,
where?
bro.
They want to make me a professor.
Thank
you so much.
Hey,
Awesome.
congratulations, bro.
Congratulations.
Prof.
Someone wants to give me a professor. You understand? So when I go on there, we will see how it goes. But it excited me that after 40 years
Which
of living
school?
this, the best engineering school in UK. That's Loughborough.
Yeah,
That's where
that's the
where I went.
first conference I ever presented in my life was Love, bro.
That's the
Ethiopia.
leading engineering school. Yeah.
That's great. Oh.
That's where I went now. So I was surprised because I've never been there since I left Loughborough. I've never even gone there.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. So I was surprised when I saw their letter. And
Congrats.
I said, I must not miss this one. Thank you, man. God bless you.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. This is Ereluma.
Lemon, ṣáná west bend. Mo ti ń sàn yín látẹ̀kan. Ẹ̀yin ni mo máa ń pè ní Mama Florida. How are you, man? Yes, man. God bless you, man.
Mommy, congratulations. Oh.
Ẹ ṣé gan ni, man. Thank you. Ẹ ṣé, mo dúpẹ́ o. Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless us all. God bless you. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy our American beer.
Are you too, ma? Atekiti láti appreciate you.
Ẹ̀yin Èkìtì, bàbá ọkọ mi, ìyá ọkọ mi dédé. God bless you. Make us proud.
Amen, ma.
God bless you. Ẹ pẹ̀lẹ́, ẹ ṣé. Thank
We'll
you.
do that, ma. It's a promise.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice time.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Yeah.